Chapter 37. Please recommend me. Please recommend me. Xiaoyan extended his hand and unfurled the scroll in his hand. What entered his eyes were the bright silver words 9 Transformation Body Art. Xiaoyan smiled slightly. His spiritual strength poured out and entered the scroll. As the owner, Xiaoyan was completely unaware of what was happening in the courtyard outside his house. Buzz. A soul-shaking buzzing sound exploded from the depths of Xiaoyan's soul. Xiaoyan frowned slightly. Immediately he gathered his spiritual strength and let out a cold snort. After the sound, Xiaoyan's body, which was formed from his spiritual strength, appeared in a white and empty space. The entire space appeared to be very big and very vast. Not far from Xiaoyan saw that there seemed to be an arc that was not in harmony with the space, yet was completely merged into one. That's right, it was an arc that was not smooth. There was no pattern to it and no trace could be found. At a glance, it seemed to be a wrinkle in the entire space. However, this wrinkle seemed to have no end. This caused Xiaoyan's expression to be grave. His spiritual strength gathered together and probed the huge wrinkle. Xiaoyan's spiritual strength followed the lines of the wrinkle and gradually extended. However, in the end he was unable to retract his spiritual strength. Xiaoyan's expression was grave. He once again looked at this white and empty world. His mind was filled with thoughts. After a long time, Xiaoyan could not help but curse in his heart. Damn it! What kind of do skill is this? When Yuan Qing gave it to me, he did not even tell me how to practice it. How am I supposed to find the method to practice it in such a big space? Xiaoyan frowned. His face revealed an impatient expression as he continued to curse in a low voice. However, just as Xiaoyan could not help but want to roar angrily, his eyes brightened slightly. His expression as he looked at the entire space also changed a little. Xiaoyan calmed his mind. Both of his eyes were shut. His spiritual strength spread out and spread over the entire space. A while later, Xiaoyan's eyes snapped open as a smile appeared on his lips. He raised his head and looked up. It was still a vast expanse of emptiness, but Xiaoyan seemed to have seen something as he laughed happily. So that's how it is. No wonder I couldn't think of the cultivation method of the 9-body transformation technique. It's because my heart has shrunk too small. This seemingly empty space was the cultivation method that I was looking for. I've learned a lot. Xiaoyan let out a low sigh. His body shook and his originally normal-sized body swiftly swelled. Within a couple of breaths, Xiaoyan's body was already a couple of thousand feet tall if one were to look at his body size from where he had been standing earlier. However, Xiaoyan continued to grow. Based on the expression in Xiaoyan's eyes, he did not seem to have reached the end. Moments later, Xiaoyan's constantly expanding body finally came to a stop. Xiaoyan looked at the object in front of him and smiled faintly. The corners of his mouth curled into an arc. In the vast expanse of emptiness, 10 figures stood separately. Among them there were 9 figures that looked exactly the same. They stood at their respective positions with lifeless expressions. Their eyes were empty and their arms drooped naturally, just like 9 puppets. Xiaoyan's face revealed a joyous smile when he saw this. That's right, these 9 figures were the 9-body transformation technique of the 9-body transformation technique. The 9 bodies were the entry level of the 9-body transformation technique. As long as Xiaoyan was able to cultivate the 9 bodies, Xiaoyan could be considered to have truly begun to practice the 9-body transformation technique. Unfortunately, although Xiaoyan possessed 2 types of transformation techniques, he only knew one of the 2 do skills. Moreover, the difficulty of this 9-body transformation technique was likely to be quite high from Xiaoyan's point of view. At the very least, from how Yuan Qing had immersed himself in this 9-body transformation technique for so many years, he had only reached the initial level. From the looks of it, he would need a lot of time if he wanted to master the 9-body transformation technique to the advanced level. However, it was helpless. Ever since Xiaoyan had experienced the matter of the flame demon old ghost, he felt that his future path would not be smooth. If he only relied on the 3000 lightning movement, it would likely be very difficult for him to avoid it. Strength is still the most important thing. Xiaoyan's eyebrows were tightly knit together. His eyes carried a thread of worry as he sighed. After which, his eyes turned and instantly became determined as he muttered to himself. Looks like the most urgent thing now is to quickly head to the northern region and meet Old Hai. Only in this way will I be able to possess sufficient strength to protect myself. Once he said this, he turned his gaze and looked at the 9-body transformation technique in his hand. He focused his attention and began to practice. There was no time or day in training. Until today, 5 days had already passed since Xiaoyan had closed his door to train. The various elders in the courtyard outside had also obediently knelt in the courtyard for 5 days during the days that Xiaoyan had been in his closed-door training. Although they had knelt for 5 days, the various elders did not dare to have the slightest complaint. After all, they had knelt here for 5 days. This meant that Xiaoyan was only punishing them and would not directly kill them. Since this was the case, how could they not properly grab hold of this opportunity? After all, it was better to live than to die a good death. Having a life was the absolute truth. Hence, as long as Xiaoyan did not kill them, they could just kneel. In any case, the entire clan had seen them and it did not matter anymore. Creak, the various elders' bent bodies quickly knelt properly. More than 10 pairs of eyes stared closely at the wooden door that Xiaoyan slowly opened. Xiaoyan strode out of the door. Just as he exhaled a long breath, he was instantly stunned. He blinked a few times, raised his eyebrows high, and opened his mouth slightly. His eyes were wide open as he stared at the elders of the Lu family kneeling in the courtyard. A long while later, under the sighing gazes of all the elders, Xiaoyan lifted his large hand and helped all the elders up. All the elders followed his lead and stood up. Their faces were respectful as they lowered their eyebrows, not daring to make eye contact with Xiaoyan. Seeing this, Xiaoyan frowned slightly. His eyes kept darting around. After a few breaths, he seemed to have understood something in his heart. His eyes dimmed, but there was still a hint of playfulness in the depths of his eyes. Xiaoyan said faintly, "All of you leave. I'm going out to train for a period of time. All of you leave." Hearing this, the elders' faces flashed with a hint of luck. They cupped their hands towards Xiaoyan and left the small courtyard. However, during this period of time, a few of the weaker ones did not dare to use Do Qi because of the punishment of 5 days of kneeling. Although they were Do Huangs, they still could not bear it. Thus, it was quite difficult for them to walk. Seeing this, Xiaoyan frowned slightly. He waved his sleeves and a few rays of light flew out. Seeing this, the elders' faces suddenly changed. Just as they were about to use all their strength to withdraw, their pupils suddenly constricted and they stood still. The few elders opened their hands. A jade bottle lay horizontally in their palms. Joy instantly filled the faces of the few elders when they saw this. The gazes they used to look at Xiaoyan were filled with respect. After which, they opened their mouths and spoke in unison. "Thank you, Senior, for the pill. This junior is very grateful." Xiaoyan made a sound of acknowledgement and did not say anything else. After all of them left, he closed the door and disappeared from Qingyang City. A few days later, outside Qingyang City in the ancient desolate forest. Bang! An illusionary figure that seemed to be an afterimage but was even more real than an afterimage gradually disappeared from the air. It turned into nothingness and disappeared. Xiaoyan frowned slightly. The sweat on his forehead gathered into droplets under Xiaoyan's frown and dripped onto his eyebrows. After which, the droplets fell onto the ground and smashed into a shallow watermark that was hidden in the soil. Xiaoyan panted slightly. The seals in his hands that appeared to be extremely familiar changed once again. As the seals changed, waves of ripples spread out in all directions, forming circular ripples like water waves. Xiaoyan's expression was grave. His spiritual strength was extremely agglomerated and his attention was highly focused. The seals in his hands changed rapidly. Suddenly, Xiaoyan let out an explosive cry from his mouth. Condense. The spiritual strength all over Xiaoyan's body swiftly agglomerated in front of him. A faint human-shaped illusionary figure gradually appeared. The swiftly changing seals in Xiaoyan's hands suddenly stopped. His mouth once again emitted an explosive cry. Spirit transformation realm. Separate. Bang. The illusionary figure scattered again and finally disappeared. Xiaoyan frowned deeply. The most difficult part of the 9-body transformation skill was the condensation of the 9 incarnations at the beginning. Originally, Xiaoyan thought that it would not be difficult for him to do the first step since he had practiced the illusory body of 3,000 thunders as a foundation. However, the first step of the 9-body transformation skill was many times more difficult than the illusory body of 3,000 thunders. The most basic part of the illusory body of 3,000 thunders was to condense a spiritual illusory body with powerful spiritual strength. As long as it could exist in this world and with his own control, he would be able to condense it and supplement his strength in the future. Sooner or later, he would be able to cultivate it to the profound level. However, the 9-body transformation skill was completely different. Although the 9-body transformation skill also required the condensation of a spiritual illusory body of 3,000 thunders, it had one point that the illusory body of 3,000 thunders did not. The 9-body transformation skill required the condensation of a spiritual illusory body of the first spiritual illusory body to be divided into 9 incarnations in an instant. Only then could it be regarded as the official start of the 9-body transformation skill. It was this point that made Xiaoyan feel quite helpless. Chapter 38. Ah. Condense for me. Xiaoyan's expression was solemn. His attention was highly focused. Droplets of perspiration followed his face as the seal on his hand changed repeatedly. His spiritual strength spread out and agglomerated in front of him. A human-shaped illusory figure that looked exactly the same as Xiaoyan's was gradually formed. Xiaoyan saw the opportunity. A thought passed through his mind and the seal in his hand swiftly changed. Bang! Unfortunately, in the end, the soul shadow still exploded into countless tiny light spots with a bang and gradually disappeared into the void. Xiaoyan frowned slightly, but the expression on his face was extremely calm. He no longer had the impatient expression from before. It was as if he already knew that he would fail. Xiaoyan paused for a moment and changed the seals in his hands again. His spiritual strength gathered again and he continued to change the seals expressionlessly. The speed of his hands also became faster and faster. The failures continued. However, Xiaoyan's expression did not change. He remained in an expressionless state. His expression was calm as the seals in his hands changed. The illusory figures in front of him were blasted apart time and time again. Xiaoyan appeared to have entered another space as he repeated his soulless practice. On the other side there was a person who looked exactly like him. The seals in Xiaoyan's hands were constantly changing. The seals in their hands were exactly the same. Upon closer inspection, the seals in their hands were actually the 9-body transformation technique. The seals in their hands changed at the same time. However, Xiaoyan was always slower than the other person by a beat. Xiaoyan's finger moved at an extremely fast speed. Waves of energy ripples spread out from the moment his finger made contact, forming a dazzling water-like ripple in front of Xiaoyan's body. Xiaoyan's expression was calm. His eyes looked in front of him. At a glance, the person on the other side of Xiaoyan was also looking at him. As the four eyes met, the changing speed of the seals in Xiaoyan's hands involuntarily increased. In just a moment, he had already reached the same rhythm as the seals in the hands of the person on the other side. And just as Xiaoyan's hands changed the rhythm of the seals in the hands of the person, Xiaoyan, who had been calm and unperturbed, suddenly had a bright look in his eyes. A bright light flashed across Xiaoyan's eyes. Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly widened. He spread open his right leg and abruptly took half a step to the right. The seal in his hand swiftly changed. After a short moment, Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly brightened and he shouted, "Condense!" As soon as the word "condense" came out, the soul strength surrounding the extinguishing flame profound province quickly dispersed. The figure in front of Xiaoyan had already disappeared and was replaced by a soul shadow condensed from soul strength. As soon as the soul shadow condensed, Xiaoyan's figure, which seemed to be in a horse stance, suddenly stepped forward. At the same time, the seals in his hands flipped and he threw out a palm. He shouted, "Separate!" The soul shadow immediately dispersed, but unlike before, this time the soul shadow did not disappear between heaven and earth. Instead, it turned into a cloud of white mist and then dispersed, dividing into 9 clouds of white mist of the same size. Xiaoyan's thoughts moved and the 9 clouds of mist floated in front of Xiaoyan. Then, under Xiaoyan's somewhat surprised gaze, they condensed into 9 figures that were exactly the same as Xiaoyan. The 9 figures were extremely illusory. If one did not look carefully, they would have been ignored directly. Xiaoyan smiled slightly and let out a long breath. Although the 9 figures were not very solid, at least he had now completed the most difficult first step. As long as he completed this step, it was only a matter of time before he could cultivate the 9-body transformation technique to the peak. A thought passed through Xiaoyan's mind. The 9 avatars scattered in an invisible manner and returned to Xiaoyan's body. The reason why the avatars from earlier had emitted a sound when they disappeared was because Xiaoyan had not completely controlled them, resulting in an explosion. Compared to the current ease with which he could control them, that was purely an accident. Kid, not bad. You were able to enter the ethereal realm at that time. Kid, your luck is not bad. Xiaoyan's expression changed drastically when he heard this. An instant later, however, his face was a little depressed as he opened his mouth and said, "Elder Gu, you didn't speak for such a long time. I thought you had fallen into a deep sleep. But when you suddenly spoke, it was really frightening. I finally managed to enter the ethereal realm, but when I woke up, I was scared to death by you. Hee. You've lived for so many years and you've seen a lot of life and death. How can you be scared to death so easily? Besides, even if you really encounter any danger, even if I don't help you fight, can't I help you remind you?" Xiaoyan nodded upon hearing this. He was just about to reply when Guyu opened his mouth again. Actually, I can't either. Xiao Yan spat out the air that he had just inhaled. He coughed a few times and said with an ugly expression, "Can't I even help to sense danger?" Of course you can. When the inheritor is chosen, the inheritor has 5 chances to ask for help from the spirit of strange fire. But you have already used them. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Used them? When did that happen? Why didn't he remember? Xiao Yan was still trying hard to recall when Guyu spoke again. Don't think about it. You used them when you asked me to help you check if there was anyone around in the desolate ancient forest. Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed and his mouth opened slightly. Then he bit his lips with his teeth in disbelief. The muscles on his face twitched slightly. A long while later, Xiao Yan frowned and opened his mouth to ask. That's not right. Didn't you say there were 5 chances? But I only asked once. What about the other 4 times? Guyu smiled faintly and said, I forgot to tell you. The 5 of us old guys will each have 1 chance. Haha. Hearing this, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched slightly. The hope in his heart was once again shattered. He let out a long sigh and raised his head to look at the sky above his head. Looking at the color of the sky, it was about to turn dark. He had not eaten for a day. Xiao Yan closed his eyes and his spiritual strength spread out. A couple of breaths later he opened his eyes. In front of him, there was a rabbit whose entire body was curled up. Xiao Yan lifted it in his hand and looked at this pitiful-looking rabbit. If you want to live, you have to rely on yourself. This world follows the law of the jungle. If you don't fight for your own strength, you can't get anything. You can only be at the mercy of others. If you want to live, you have to kill others. This is the rule of the continent, the rule of the strong. Guyu sighed and said with emotion. Time flew by. It had already been 2 months since Xiao Yan had arrived in this world. The night sky was dotted with stars, making the whole sky look like a painting. In the desolate ancient forest, a bonfire was releasing a faint flame. The light of the flame shone, and the forest within 100 meters was covered with a thin layer of red gauze. Beside the bonfire, a young man in white was sitting cross-legged. Xiao Yan's eyes were closed. Between his eyebrows, the red and white lotus-shaped fire seal was faintly emitting a faint light. This silence only continued for a moment before Xiao Yan suddenly opened his eyes. A sharp aura was emitted from his eyes, causing the leaves within a couple of dozen feet around Xiao Yan to move without any wind. The seals in Xiao Yan's hands changed. Spiritual strength surged out from between his eyebrows, slowly revolving and condensing around his body. A moment later, 9 figures that were exactly the same as Xiao Yan were seated cross-legged around Xiao Yan's body. Currently, the 9 avatars were already very different from when they had first appeared. There was a layer of faint invisible flame on the vortex within the bodies of the 9 avatars and on the surface of their bodies. It was repeatedly tempering these 9 avatars. That flame was the heavenly flame that had the greatest effect on spiritual strength, the fallen heart flame. Xiao Yan's spiritual strength surged out, continuously changing above Xiao Yan's head. In the end, it formed a couple of basketball-sized invisible spheres that floated above Xiao Yan's head. A thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind. One heavy soul pearl after another smashed towards the 9 avatars. Although he had already refined 9 avatars, these 9 avatars were still too weak. He needed to first use some tempering methods to solidify the avatars. The most important thing was that Xiao Yan did not have any attribute spirit stones on him. He was unable to carve a chi method to allow the avatars to train on their own. For the 9 transformation body art, not being able to train on its own was no different from a soul puppet. Therefore, Xiao Yan could only use this period of time to solidify the avatars. Time passed. When the bonfire that illuminated the forest was extinguished, the stars in the sky disappeared. The land regained its light. A new day had once again descended upon the continent. Xiao Yan's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. He glanced at the distance, at the shadows of the trees on the ground. He stood up and the 9 avatars around him disappeared. Xiao Yan's body flashed and only an extinguished bonfire remained in the forest. Chapter 39. Azure Sun City Lu Family Estate. Lu Huabai and First Elder Lu Xinqing walked in the courtyard of the Lu family estate. The people who passed by all respectfully bowed when they saw them. The 2 of them smiled and nodded in response, then continued to walk forward. Looking at the direction, it was the courtyard that Xiao Yan lived in. After silently walking for a while, Lu Huabai saw that there were no people from the Lu family in the surroundings. He turned his head to look at First Elder Lu Xinqing, who was walking with his head lowered, and asked, First Elder, have you really decided to give that thing to Senior Xiao Yan? But that thing is the most important thing to our Lu family. Hearing that, First Elder stopped and deeply breathed in, then slowly exhaled. He raised his head to look at Lu Huabai. His gaze wandered, but in the end he still deeply nodded and said, "Yes, I've decided. That thing should be given to Senior Xiaoyan. Our Lu family indeed doesn't have the qualifications to possess it anymore. If we forcefully keep it, sooner or later, it will bring disaster to our Lu family. It's better to give it to Senior Xiaoyan and let him increase his strength. Only in this way can our Lu family survive. After all, the only power that our Lu family can rely on and trust is Senior Xiaoyan." Speaking up to here, Lu Huabai's face also seemed a bit ugly, and his mood also seemed a bit downcast. A family actually couldn't even protect the most important thing to their family. If this were to spread out, wouldn't it become a joke? Lu Xinqing looked at Lu Huabai's somewhat downcast expression again and said, "Enough. Don't think too much about it. The most important thing to the family? The foundation for the rise of the family? My Lu family? My current Lu family? Do we have the qualifications? Let's not talk about whether or not there will be people who will come to steal it from us in the future. Even if no one comes to steal it, with the talent of the few juniors I left behind, do they have the ability to learn it? Why don't we give it to Senior Xiaoyan and build a good foundation for him? In the future, it will also be endlessly beneficial to our Lu family." Hearing that, Lu Huabai sighed and didn't speak anymore. The two of them walked together towards Xiaoyan's residence. At this moment in Xiaoyan's bedroom, 10 figures were sitting cross-legged. One of them was particularly eye-catching because he was the only one among the 10 who was completely corporeal and had the aura of a human. Xiaoyan's spiritual strength surged out and once again agglomerated into a couple of heavy soul beads in the sky above his head. A thought passed through his mind and the heavy soul beads immediately flew down. They were divided into 9 waves and fell from the heads of each of the avatars. Each of the heavy soul pearls fell with great momentum, but they disappeared the moment they touched the 9 incarnations. The 9 avatars continued to tremble. Waves of gentle white light were emitted from the surface of their bodies. Xiaoyan frowned slightly. The expression on his face appeared to be a little uncomfortable. However, he once again relaxed and endured the pain. After a while, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing arrived in front of Xiaoyan's courtyard. The two of them looked at each other and stepped forward without hesitation. Lu Huabai looked at the door of the small courtyard and glanced at Lu Xinqing. He stepped forward and raised his hand to knock on the door. However, Xiaoyan's voice sounded from inside the door. "Come in. I know you're here." Hearing that, Lu Huabai's eyes narrowed. He turned his head and looked at Lu Xinqing. However, he saw that Lu Xinqing had an indifferent expression. Lu Xinqing smiled at Lu Huabai and entered the small courtyard first. When Lu Xinqing and Lu Huabai entered the courtyard, Xiaoyan was already waiting in front of the stone table in the courtyard. The two of them walked up to Xiaoyan and bowed respectfully to Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan waved his hand to dismiss them and indicated for them to sit in front of the stone table. Xiaoyan looked at the two of them and frowned. He asked, "Patriarch Lu and First Elder, is something the matter?" Lu Huabai looked at Lu Xinqing. However, Lu Xinqing stood up and looked at Xiaoyan. He flipped his palm and a silver white scroll appeared in his hand. He extended his hands and placed them on the stone table in front of Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan frowned slightly when he saw this. He raised his eyes to look at Lu Xinqing, but Lu Xinqing directly opened his mouth and said, "I believe that Senior already knows the name of my Lu clan's ancestor?" Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows and took out a scroll. However, when he mentioned his Lu clan's ancestor, he frowned. His pupils suddenly shrank and his eyes widened. He raised his head and looked at Lu Xinqing. His eyes were filled with joy that could not be wiped away. "That's right. This scroll is the Sky Extinction Steps." Xiaoyan already had some guesses in his heart. When he heard Lu Xinqing's words, some excitement appeared in his eyes. Xiaoyan had a faint feeling in his heart that something would happen in the near future. However, with his current strength, it was likely that it would be extremely difficult for him to hide. Hence, he had put in so much effort to practice the 9 transformation body skill. However, with his speed, it was likely impossible to guarantee that he would be safe. However, at this moment, Lu Xinqing just happened to deliver the Sky Extinction Steps. To Xiaoyan, this was equivalent to justice falling from the heavens and providing charcoal in snowy weather. How could Xiaoyan not be wild with joy? Lu Xinqing saw the joy that was revealed on Xiaoyan's face. His eyebrows twitched slightly and some doubt appeared in his eyes. He nodded slightly and thought unnaturally in his heart. "Don't tell me that this Xiaoyan also came to my Lu clan for the Sky Extinction Steps?" However, in the next moment he smiled and threw away the thought in his heart. He saw Xiaoyan stand up and extend his hands in front of him. He cupped his hands toward the First Elder and said with a tone that carried gratitude, "Thank you, First Elder, for gifting me this sky extinction steps. Speaking of which, I have recently met with some trouble and urgently needed a set of agility do techniques to protect myself. This is great. This time around, the First Elder has indeed saved me from the abyss of suffering by gifting me this set of Lu clan's ancestors' famous agility do technique, the sky extinction steps. I will definitely thank you heavily." Hearing this, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing's faces were stunned. Originally, the two of them had thought that Xiaoyan knew about the matter of the sky extinction steps when they saw the surprised expression on his face. However, from the looks of it now, the two of them had really thought too much. In that case, the clan leader and I have helped Senior. This can be considered Senior's fortune. Since that is the case, Senior, please accept this sky extinction steps. The two of us will take our leave first. As they spoke, the two of them were about to turn around and leave. However, Xiaoyan was one step ahead of them and called out to stop them. His face had a joyous smile as he opened his mouth and laughed loudly. "Haha. The two of you have helped me so much today. How can I let the two of you leave empty-handed like this? These things are useless to me. Just treat it as a gift from me to the two of you." As Xiaoyan spoke, he waved his right sleeve. A white light flashed and Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing were immediately stunned. They saw that on the stone table in front of Xiaoyan, piles of medicinal pills and jade bottles were piled up like small hills. Many natural treasures were piled up as if they were free of charge. Among them, there was actually a furry little beast that looked like a fat cat. This caused Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing's eyebrows to twitch slightly when they saw it. When the little beast saw the two of them, its huge eyes also focused and its pupils suddenly shrank. It raised its huge head and its throat moved. It was unknown what it had swallowed. The little beast turned around and saw a white-clothed youth behind it. It instantly became happy and jumped into Xiaoyan's arms. Xiaoyan also grinned and opened his mouth to speak to the little beast in his arms in a slightly apologetic manner. "Sorry, I forgot to take care of you for a while. You can stay here in the future. I have a lot of things to do, so I don't have time to take care of you." Hearing this, the little beast's huge head shook. Xiaoyan patted its head and smiled slightly. He placed it on the ground. The little beast looked at Xiaoyan eagerly. Its claws picked up an 8th-grade medicinal pill on the ground and swallowed it with a gulp. Xiaoyan ignored him. However, the corner of Lu Huabai's and Lu Xincheng's eyes twitched when they saw this scene. A Tier 8 medicinal pill. They were naturally able to recognize it. That medicinal pill was also quite hot in their eyes when they saw it earlier. However, just now, the little guy in front of them actually swallowed it in one gulp. It had to be said that this was a waste of a heavenly treasure. Xiaoyan smiled slightly. He didn't care about the expressions on the two's faces and opened his mouth to speak with a smile. "You guys take these first. I'll go back to my room and refine some more for you guys. Also, as I said just now, because I've been busy, I'll leave this little guy in your care. However, please don't worry. I'll prepare the medicinal pills it eats for you guys." After speaking, Xiaoyan turned around and entered the room. Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing only felt that the instant Xiaoyan entered the room and the wooden door closed, the world suddenly became hot and dry. It was as if it had turned into a furnace. Even the leaves of a green tree in the small courtyard were faintly yellow at this moment. Chapter 40. Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing's expressions were grave as they continuously released the Do Qi within their bodies, doing their utmost to resist the external heat. But unfortunately, although their strength was extraordinary, the surging heat waves emitted from within the room were far from something they could withstand. The two of them sweated like rain, and every time their sweat dripped, it would instantly transform into nothingness. The two of them forcefully supported their bodies, their brows tightly knit together, their faces distorted, and they couldn't even make a sound. Suddenly, the surroundings became silent, and everything returned to normal. The two of them bent over with their hands on their knees as they struggled to move their dry throats and gasped for breath. Xiaoyan's slightly apologetic voice came from within the room, causing the corners of their mouths to involuntarily twitch. "Haha, I'm sorry. I haven't refined pills for 10 years and I couldn't control myself when I came here today." Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing laughed dryly as they looked at each other. Actually, they could see some astonishment and helplessness in each other's eyes. Since their seniors had made a mistake, who wouldn't give them a chance? Within the room, Xiaoyan sat on the ground, and a crimson cauldron silently stood in front of him. Xiaoyan waved his hand, and with a flash of light, a large pile of heavenly and earthly treasures appeared within the room, and various spiritual medicines were casually thrown on the ground. Xiaoyan waved his hand, and several hundred spiritual medicines flew out from the pile of spiritual medicines. Xiaoyan's palm struck the cauldron in front of him, and a wave of clear sounds of metal striking metal sounded out. The cauldron lid opened, and several hundred spiritual medicines entered the cauldron. Xiao Yan's palm once again struck the cauldron's fire injection point. Boom! A muffled sound of a flame igniting resounded within the cauldron, and a ball of gorgeous flame endlessly surged within the cauldron. The essence of several hundred spiritual medicines was completely refined in an instant. Xiao Yan's 10 fingers moved in succession. As the heavenly flames surged, the refined spirit herbs in the medicinal cauldron kept changing and fusing. After a while, waves of medicinal fragrance spread out from the medicinal cauldron, lingering in Xiao Yan's bedroom. Then it gradually spread out, filling the entire small courtyard. In the courtyard, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing both widened their eyes. A thick shock emerged from the bottom of their eyes. The two of them exchanged glances and saw some excitement in each other's eyes. Just by smelling the pill fragrance that was being emitted from the room, the two of them were certain that the medicinal pills that Xiao Yan was currently refining were at least tier 8. From the meaning of Xiao Yan's words earlier, it was likely that the number of medicinal pills that he was refining was quite high. Xiao Yan was raising the overall strength of the Lu family in the name of gratitude. Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing looked at each other again and frowned. Looks like Senior Xiao Yan is about to leave. Otherwise he would not have given us so many things. Lu Xinqing nodded slightly. His tone carried some reluctance as he sighed softly. When Lu Huabai heard this, the corners of his mouth revealed a smile. He opened his mouth and said to Lu Xinqing, "All right, it's fine. That's enough. How can our Lu clan bind him forever? The Heavenly Thunder Oath is only a guarantee. As long as Senior has the heart to protect our Lu clan, that's enough. Our Lu clan is still too weak." The two of them smiled at each other and did not say anything else. They sat by the stone table and quietly waited. The medicinal fragrance spread out like fog. The entire small courtyard was covered by this fog. The fog was so thick that it even caused people to be unable to clearly see things within 30 feet. However, the two of them continued to quietly sit by the stone table in the small courtyard. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, 4 hours had already passed since Xiao Yan entered the room. During this period of time the world was completely calm. However, Xiao Yan frowned slightly. He felt that it was very strange because he did not receive any pill lightning. Strange. Why are these grade 8 medicinal pills unable to attract the lightning tribulation? It seems like there are many differences in this world as well. Xiao Yan sighed slightly. After which, he stood up and waved his large sleeve. He kept all the medicinal pills that he had just refined into a jade bottle. The seals in his hands changed. As the seals in Xiao Yan's hands continuously changed, all the medicinal fragrance within the room and the small courtyard began to unceasingly churn at this moment and gathered towards the room. The seals in Xiao Yan's hands condensed. All the fog in the room began to condense. In merely a few breaths, it had already condensed into a huge white dragon. The seals in Xiao Yan's hands changed once again. The huge dragon also soared and continuously soared above Xiao Yan's room. This is pill transforming into a dragon. Seeing this, Lu Xinqing's eyes were filled with shock. Pill transforming into a dragon. That was something that could only be condensed when a medicinal pill was of the highest quality. However, at this moment, looking at the size of the dragon and the pure pill aura on its body, it was likely that the medicinal pills that Xiao Yan had refined this time were all of the highest quality. When the two of them saw this, they looked at each other and saw the deep shock in each other's eyes. Then the two of them flew out of the small courtyard. With a flip of their hand seals, a curtain of light spread out between the heavens and the earth, enveloping the entire small courtyard. The two of them landed and stood at the entrance of Xiao Yan's small courtyard. They blocked the door and chased away the people who had come to watch. They did not allow anyone to take a step closer. Those people who had come to watch the divine dragon all curled their lips and resentfully left. After a moment, the wooden door opened. A white-clothed figure walked out from the door. Seeing this, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing hurriedly bowed. Xiao Yan waved his hand and allowed them to enter the small courtyard. Xiao Yan sat in front of the stone table. With a wave of his big sleeve, a large pile of jade bottles flew out and piled up into a small mountain in front of the three of them. Xiao Yan looked at the two of them and said, "There are a total of 13,400 medicinal pills here. Among them, 6,300 are 7th-grade medicinal pills, 400 are 6th-grade medicinal pills, and the rest are 8th-grade medicinal pills." After saying this, Xiao Yan took off the storage ring on his hand and said to Lu Huabai, "The storage ring is filled with 8th-grade medicinal pills for this little fellow to eat. Remember, don't try to snatch these medicinal pills from it. I won't care, but if any of you really try to snatch them from it, you'll have to bear the consequences. Hearing this, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing frowned. However, they did not say anything. After all, it was a senior who had spoken. They just had to listen carefully. If one day they really accidentally offended this senior, then they could only bear the consequences themselves. Okay, you guys take these medicinal pills back first. Before I leave, I'll give this storage ring and the little fellow to you. After saying this, he threw the storage ring in his hand to the little beast and was about to turn around and return to the room to continue cultivating. Seeing this, Lu Xinqing frowned slightly. He hesitated for a moment and could not help but speak. Senior, please wait. Junior feels that there are some things that should be made clear to you. Otherwise, if you go out like this, I'm afraid that my Lu clan will harm you. If that's the case, wouldn't my Lu clan become a sinner for all eternity? Hearing this, Xiaoyan's eyebrows twitched slightly. He turned his head and looked at Lu Xinqing. Seeing the latter's sincere expression, the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Looks like this Sky Absolute Steps also has some secrets. Then this is interesting. Let's listen to it. Thinking in his heart, Xiaoyan once again sat beside the stone table and indicated for Lu Xinqing and Lu Huabai to sit down. Lu Xinqing also knew Xiaoyan's intention and was not overcautious. The two of them sat beside the stone table. Lu Xinqing did not dawdle and directly opened his mouth to speak. An afternoon passed just like this. After sending off Lu Xinqing and Lu Huabai, Xiaoyan also understood some of the secrets of the Sky Absolute Steps. Of course, to Xiaoyan it might be a secret. However, to the people of the western region they were only waiting. Waiting for the appearance of the Sky Absolute Steps, waiting for a great opportunity. Xiaoyan found out from Lu Xinqing that the Sky Absolute Steps was one of the 3 famous Do skills of an ancient almighty in the western region, Tianju Shangren. It possessed supreme power. Tianju Shangren was once famous in the western region. He made his debut 5,000 years ago and used only 1,000 years to transform into a Do D. After that, he continuously made breakthroughs in the following 100 years and became an origin transformation expert. However, ever since then he disappeared without a trace. There was no news of him at all. Only his 3 famous Do skills were left behind. The 3 Do skills were all human-rank Do skills. However, they were all top-tier Do skills. They were respectively Sky Absolute Palm, Sky Absolute Finger and Sky Absolute Steps. Among them, the Sky Absolute Palm was said to be able to cover the heavens and earth with one palm. It was said to be the most powerful Do skill among the 3. Next was the Sky Absolute Finger. The Sky Absolute Finger was known for its ruthlessness. It was said to be able to destroy 10,000 souls with one finger and shatter immortal souls with one finger. Finally, there was the Sky Absolute Steps. Although the Sky Absolute Steps was a human-rank Do skill, its true power was unknown and unattainable. Even Tianju was unable to guess its true power. The Sky Absolute Steps, the highest realm of the Sky Absolute Steps, was to walk through the heavens and earth as if walking through the endless void. The 3 Do skills of Tianju were the greatest treasures of the western region. They were the method to open the cave that Tianju had left behind. Only the 3 Sky Absolute skills could open the Tianju tomb. Chapter 41. Tianju's cave had always been a secret and no one knew about it. But since 1,500 years ago, someone accidentally found the Tianju's stone tablet, which was left behind by Tianju, and found out about the secret. Therefore, the southwest region began to be turbulent. Jianghu sect, one of the 5 major sects in the southwest region, was annihilated by the other 4 major sects because their vice-sect leader, Lu Feng, had mastered one of Tianju's 3 ultimate skills, the Tianju step. Since then, Jianghu sect became the history of the southwest region. However, Jianghu sect was not completely annihilated, and the 4 major sects did not get the Tianju step in the end. This was because Lu Feng's family, the number 1 family power in the Jianghu sect, managed to escape from the sect with the Sky Extinction step under Lu Feng's desperate cover. However, from now on they could only live a life of being uprooted and homeless. Lu family escaped, and the Tianju step was nowhere to be found. The 4 major sects were infuriated, and sent out most of their manpower to search everywhere. They also annihilated several families that were on good terms with Lu family, but in the end they still could not find them. Lu Feng did not die at that time, but he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Death was only a matter of time. Lu Feng also left behind the golden tablet and the scroll in Xiaoyan's hand, the Tianju step, at the moment when he was on the verge of death. They were waiting for the Lu clan to produce another genius who could cultivate the Heaven Annihilation step to greater mastery so that the Lu clan could have a place in the southwest region. Unfortunately, the Lu clan's descendants were ignorant and had wasted this golden plaque. Although they had discovered it now, the limbs of the four great sects had already extended here. If the Lu clan wanted to forcefully rise up, it was completely impossible without relying on external forces. At this point, Xiaoyan also knew the real reason why Lu Xingqing gave him the Tianju step. He wanted to be on good terms with Xiaoyan, and also wanted to tie Xiaoyan and his Lu family closer together. However, this was not important to Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan would definitely protect the Lu family. Lu Xingqing's action was equivalent to an unnecessary action for Xiaoyan. The next morning, Xiaoyan woke up from his cultivation and walked out of his room. He raised his head and looked at the eastern horizon. Over there was a trace of morning light, telling the world that today was a new day and there was another new day. Xiaoyan slowly walked out of the small courtyard and into the Lu estate. Along the way, when the Lu family's members saw Xiaoyan, they all had a respectful expression and cupped their hands towards Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan returned their greetings with a smile and slowly walked past them. In the Lu family's great meeting hall, Lu Huabai, the head of the Lu family, was having a morning meeting with Lu Xingqing and the other elders of the Lu family. However, a guard suddenly came in from outside the hall to report that Xiaoyan had already arrived in front of the hall. The expressions of Lu Huabai, Lu Xingqing, and the others went slightly pale when they heard this, and they successively stood up and ran out of the hall. When they passed by the guard of the Lu clan, Lu Huabai even fiercely glared at him, causing the guard to have an embarrassed and rather helpless expression. Senior has arrived so early in the morning. Junior has failed to welcome you. I hope Senior can forgive me. Lu Huabai walked forward with large strides and arrived in front of Xiaoyan. He led the elders of the Lu family and cupped their hands towards Xiaoyan as they bowed. Xiaoyan faintly smiled and told them to dispense with the formalities. Then he looked at Lu Huabai with a gentle smile and said, Patriarch Lu, ever since I came to the Azure Sun City, I have been causing trouble for the Lu family for many days. I have some matters to attend to recently, so it is inconvenient for me to stay any longer. I will leave today and I will come back when I have time in the future. When Lu Huabai and the others heard this, their expressions slightly changed. They looked at each other and then looked at Xiaoyan together. Lu Huabai couldn't help but ask, Senior, you're leaving now? Xiaoyan looked at Lu Huabai's reluctant expression, but he still smiled and nodded, saying, I have some matters to attend to. Moreover, there might be a big battle with someone in the near future. So, if I continue to stay in the Lu family, it will only harm you. So, I plan to leave in a few days. Before he finished speaking, Xiaoyan waved his sleeve again, and a furry little beast that looked like a cat appeared in front of everyone. There was even a storage ring around its neck. Xiaoyan looked at the little beast and continued to speak to Lu Huabai. Just like what I said yesterday, I will leave this little fellow in your Lu family for now. When I have time in the future, I will naturally bring it back. Lu Huabai and Lu Xingqing both nodded. The other elders slightly raised their eyebrows, but they didn't say anything. After Xiaoyan finished explaining some matters, he turned around and walked out of the Lu mansion. Lu Huabai and the others also hurriedly followed and sent Xiaoyan out of the Lu family. On the street, Xiaoyan slowly walked out of the city. As he sensed the noise on the street, the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth revealed a comfortable smile. It had really been a long time since he had felt such a calm feeling in the noise of the city. Xiaoyan walked on the street with a relaxed expression. As he walked, his eyebrows slightly wrinkled. He raised his eyes and looked around. He had actually walked into the slums. He didn't care. After all, he only planned to wander around the city before leaving. Xiaoyan walked all the way into the depths of the slums. After walking for a long time, Xiaoyan finally stopped. His eyes looked around as if he was searching for something. The surroundings were silent, but Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly lit up. His body moved and he disappeared from where he stood. In a small dilapidated courtyard, there were 3 men and 1 woman. Among them, one of the men was lying on the ground. A blade made of fine steel fell to the side. The man's aura was completely gone, and there wasn't a trace of blood on his body. Looking at his face, it was purplish-black and his eyes were rolled up. It was obvious that he had been poisoned to death. As for the other 2 men, they were dressed in black warrior attire and held steel blades in their hands. Their backs were facing the dilapidated wooden door of the small courtyard. Their bodies were slightly trembling, and their eyes could not help but look at their dead companion. Their eyes were filled with fear. In front of them, a girl wearing white clothes with a delicate face was retreating step by step. Her eyes carefully glanced at the house behind her. Step by step she carefully retreated. Her eyes were filled with unconcealable fear. Suddenly one of the 2 men winked at the other. The other man frowned slightly. After hesitating for a moment, he raised his head to look at the little girl and said, "Humph. Little girl, your ability isn't small. Unfortunately, even if you don't die today, you must leave Qingyang City. Otherwise, when the Lord comes, it will be too late for you to regret. So you better make a choice quickly. Either you die or you leave Qingyang City quickly and never come back." Hearing this, the little girl's face instantly turned pale. Her body also trembled a little. Her eyes quickly reddened, and drops of hot tears immediately flowed out. However, her mouth still stubbornly cried, "No. This is my home. Grandma and the others are all dead. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave." As the little girl cried, a purplish-black fog quickly surged out from her body and enveloped the two men. Just by looking at the color of the fog, one could tell that it was definitely highly toxic. Seeing this, the two men's faces instantly changed. The dou qi in their bodies quickly surged out, forming an energy shield in front of them. Their figures quickly retreated, escaping from the small courtyard. It was already too late. The path of retreat was already blocked by the purplish-black fog. Escaping was already impossible. The two men's faces were anxious. The dou qi light shield wouldn't last for long. If they couldn't charge out of the purplish-black fog before the dou qi light shield broke, then the two of them would definitely die. After all, no strong person would be willing to come to this slum area. Peng? A muffled sound rang out all around them. The two men didn't know where the sound came from, but the two of them felt that the purplish-black fog that was constantly eroding the shield was slowly dispersing. The two men's eyes brightened. Their faces revealed a trace of joy. From this, it was obvious that someone had subdued the little girl. The two men looked at each other and smiled. Their eyes were filled with life. As the poison fog dispersed, two figures appeared. A white-robed man stood in front of the little girl with a warm smile on his face. At this moment, the little girl's face was filled with tears. Her body was trembling uncontrollably. Her hands were tightly clenched into fists. Her head of black hair fluttered in the wind. At a glance, she was extremely pitiful. Xiaoyan faintly smiled and bent down to look at the little girl. The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. Xiaoyan reached out with his hand, wanting to brush away the strands of hair on the little girl's face. The little girl shrank back in fear. Xiaoyan looked at the little girl's slightly fearful eyes and a warm smile appeared on his face. He softly said, "Little girl, don't worry. I won't harm you. What's your name?" Hearing this, the little girl still shrank back a little. Then she opened her mouth and asked, "I'm called Liener. You wouldn't be the strong person that they were talking about and have come to kill me, right?" Hearing this, Xiaoyan's face was stunned. The corner of his mouth twitched. "My luck is so bad. They just started talking about me and I'm already here." After calming himself down, Xiaoyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't worry, I have nothing to do with them. I won't harm you. You can do whatever you want. I won't stop you. I just hope that you can come with me." Chapter 42. Liener's expression changed slightly when she heard this. She took a small step back and looked at Xiaoyan with vigilance. This also made Xiaoyan feel rather embarrassed. Xiaoyan's thoughts flew as he reorganized his words. Only then did he speak again. "Of course, when I said leave, I didn't mean leaving Qingyang City. You will still stay in Qingyang City in the future. Moreover, I promise that you will never hurt innocent people again." The moment Xiaoyan said this, the little girl's eyes lit up and revealed a trace of joy. Her mouth also bloomed into a cute smile, causing Xiaoyan to also smile slightly. "Is what you said true? Liener will never hurt anyone again?" Xiaoyan smiled and nodded. He said to Liener, "Yes, I will cure your illness. Yes, Big Brother will cure your illness. Moreover, I will bring you a sister who has this illness to be your master. That sister is Big Brother's friend. Master will treat Liener very well and can make Liener very powerful." Liener's face was full of joy when she heard this. From the moment Xiaoyan made a move and disintegrated her poisonous fog, she had already determined that Xiaoyan was a very powerful expert. After hearing Xiaoyan's words, she was even more certain in her heart. After all, experts had very high standards. Generally, experts would choose their own disciples. There were also many experts who liked to dig for treasures in the secular world. It was not uncommon for them to find a talented disciple. Therefore, when Liener heard that Xiaoyan was going to find her a master, she was even more overjoyed. With a master, she would no longer have to be afraid in the future. She would also become an expert and no one would dare to bully her. Therefore, after Liener said a few words to Xiaoyan, she was extremely excited and wanted to leave with Xiaoyan. In any case, as long as she was in Qingyang City, It didn't matter whether she had a master or not. After all, as long as she followed Xiaoyan, she would be very safe. With this, Xiaoyan and the little girl left this place happily. The little girl was naively thinking that she could safely stay in Qingyang City and not hurt anyone. She could also have a very powerful master to protect her. As for Xiaoyan, how could he not be happy? He had finally found a disciple with the woeful poison body. It could be said that he had found a disciple for the fairy doctor. How could he not be happy? How could he not think for her? That's right, the woeful poison body. This was the third time Xiaoyan had seen the woeful poison body. The first time was naturally the little fairy doctor, who had spent a great deal of effort to finally control the woeful poison body, although it was a man-made woeful poison body, if it was allowed to mature. Thus, when Xiaoyan saw the Ice River Valley's Valley Master, Bing He could be considered to have seen the woeful poison body once. As for the Lianer he saw this time, she also had a pure woeful poison body. However, the current Lianer's body was still in its initial stage. There was still quite a long way to go before it truly matured. Thus, Xiaoyan wanted to protect Lianer while she was still in her initial stage. On one hand, he wanted to prevent her from hurting others. On the other hand, he wanted to protect her so that the fairy doctor could have a satisfactory disciple. In this way he could have the best of both worlds. Xiaoyan led Lianer. Along the way, Lianer hid behind Xiaoyan and followed closely. It was as though she was afraid that others would see her. Xiaoyan also repeatedly comforted Lianer along the way, telling her not to be afraid. This caused Lianer to become even closer to Xiaoyan. Not long after, the two of them, one big and one small, arrived in front of the Lu clan's mansion. When the two guards saw that Xiaoyan had returned, one of them immediately ran into the Lu clan's mansion to call Lu Huabai and the others. The other guard arrived in front of Xiaoyan and bowed. He glanced at Lianer before leading Xiaoyan and Lianer into the Lu clan's mansion. A moment later, the head of the Lu clan, Lu Huabai, Lu Xinqing, and the other elders of the Lu clan arrived in front of Xiaoyan with smiles on their faces. They bowed to Xiaoyan. Seeing that Xiaoyan had returned, everyone thought that he would stay for a while longer. Unexpectedly, as soon as they met, Xiaoyan explained the purpose of his return. Xiaoyan looked at the surprised gazes of Lu Huabai and the others and smiled. However, he shook his head slightly and said, "This time I came here to stay. I don't plan to stay in the Lu clan for a while longer. Instead, I want you to help me with something." Lu Huabai and the others raised their eyebrows slightly when they heard this. They looked at each other and glanced at Xiaoyan, who had a calm expression and did not have the slightest intention of persuading him to stay. Lu Xinqing was the first to speak. He looked at Xiaoyan and asked, "I wonder what senior needs our Lu clan's help with? If it is possible, our Lu clan will definitely do our best to help senior." Xiaoyan smiled and nodded when he heard this. Then he smiled and said, "Actually, it's not a big deal." Xiaoyan had a smile on his face. He looked at Lianer, who was grabbing his sleeve, and then looked at Lu Xinqing and said, "It's just that after I left, I found this little girl. I see that her physique is not bad and her talent is extraordinary. Coincidentally, I have a good friend who was similar to her when he was young. Therefore, I helped him reserve this disciple. However, I still can't find my good friend, and I might have some trouble in the near future. Therefore, I want to entrust this disciple to the Lu clan first." The faces of Lu Huabai and the others twitched when they heard this. He went out for a trip and brought back a disciple with extraordinary talent. If his eyesight was not too good, then his eyesight was too low. However, seeing Xiaoyan's strength, his eyesight was naturally not low. Then wouldn't this disciple that he found for his good friend already have a bright future? If the Lu family could be on good terms with her and get on the good side of this little girl's future master, then wouldn't the rise of the Lu family be inevitable? Moreover, Xiaoyan had personally sent her over. Was that not intentional? A glint flashed across Lu Xinqing's eyes. The gaze he used to look at Xiaoyan was filled with gratitude. Now Xiaoyan had given this great opportunity to the Lu clan. How could he not cherish it? Lu Xinqing looked at Lianer, who was standing beside Xiaoyan, and a smile appeared on his wrinkled old face, making others feel that he was very kind. Xiaoyan smiled when he saw this. He looked at the timid Lianer and then looked at Lu Huabai. After a few simple words, Lu Huabai dismissed all the elders, leaving only First Elder Lu Xinqing behind. Then he and Xiaoyan's group entered the meeting hall together. A moment later, a young man jogged into the hall. Lu Xiang's eyes were tightly shut. Xiaoyan's finger pointed at the spot between Lu Xiang's eyebrows. A light flashed and Lu Xiang's entire body trembled intensely. A few breaths later, Lu Xiang slowly opened his eyes and nodded at Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan looked at Lu Huabai and the other two and solemnly opened his mouth. I hope that only the three of you know about this. In the future, if Lianer needs anything, I'll leave it to the three of you. The three of them nodded heavily. Xiaoyan looked at Lianer and pointed at Lianer's forehead with 2 fingers. Lianer shrunk her head back in fear, but she didn't dodge. Xiaoyan smiled and withdrew his fingers. A flame flashed and a lotus-shaped fire seal appeared on Lianer's forehead, just like the one on Xiaoyan's forehead. Lianer frowned and reached out to touch the slightly warm fire seal. She curled her lips and didn't say anything. Xiaoyan once again turned his head to look at Lu Huabai and the other two. This was especially the case for Lu Xiang. After a while he said, I'm sure you've already heard about Lianer's matter through my voice transmission. Hearing this, the three of them nodded their heads in unison. Seeing this, Xiaoyan continued. Then you've all understood the sealing method? The three of them nodded again. Lu Xinqing smiled and said, Haha, if we don't even know how to use senior's guidance, then we've really lived in vain. Everyone laughed again when they heard this. Xiaoyan looked at Lu Xiang and continued, Among the three of you, Lu Xiang, you're the most trusted. Among the three of you, I am more at ease with clan head Lu and the great elder. Only you, Lu Xiang, you are the youngest. When Lian erupts, you might not be able to control yourself. Hence, I have left my fire god seal in Lianer's body. It is enough to completely suppress the poisonous fog in Lianer's body. Hence, you can rest assured that nothing will happen to you. Lu Xiang's expression changed slightly when he heard this, but in the end, he nodded with a determined expression. Xiaoyan smiled in satisfaction and then walked out of the hall. Chapter 43. When Lu Huabai and the others saw Xiaoyan walking out of the main hall, they looked at each other and frowned. Then they followed him. Xiaoyan walked out of the main hall and turned around to look at the people who followed him. He smiled and waited for them to walk in front of him before he said, Since you helped me take care of Lianer, I'll leave you some things as a reward for taking care of Lianer. As soon as he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Lu Xinqing and the others to react. He moved and headed towards the Lu family's 1 million #small. As he spoke, he flew away. When Lu Huabai and the others saw this, they asked Lu Xiangxian to stay behind to take care of Lianer. The two of them quickly followed. After a while, Xiaoyan and Lu Huabai arrived at the Lu family's 1 million #small. As he spoke, Xiaoyan stepped forward and arrived in front of the golden plaque again. Now, the golden plaque had become the Lu family's most important cultivation secret technique. This was because there was a wisp of the soul imprint of an ancient sage in the golden plaque. At least, Lu Huabai told the family members this way. He didn't want the matter of ancestor Lu Feng to be spread everywhere. If that happened, it wouldn't benefit the Lu family at all. Because of Lu Huabai, the Lu family members also knew the purpose of the golden plaque. Its purpose was to let the outstanding juniors of the Lu family come here to comprehend and improve their strength. After Lu Huabai informed the Lu clan immediately understood that strength was the foundation of a clan. The rise and fall of a clan was based on strength. If a clan had strength, it could flourish. If it didn't, it would definitely perish. The family's strength originally came from the juniors. However, the Lu family hadn't prospered for so many years mainly because the juniors were too weak. Now that there was such an opportunity, the Lu family members were naturally excited. Therefore, the family's 1 million #small. As a result, it became the place that all the juniors of the Lu family yearned for. This wasn't because the golden plaque was in the million #small. It was because every person who entered the million #small for the first time, regardless of their strength, all of the clan's disciples were allowed to meditate in front of the golden plaque for an hour. When the news spread, the entire clan was shocked. All of the younger generation of the clan were incomparably agitated. Every single one of them would be cooped up in their rooms every day, constantly cultivating, neglecting sleep and food, just so that they could reach the level of strength as soon as possible and have the ability to enter Tibet. The opportunity to speak. As a result, the overall strength of the Lu clan rose by a large margin in a short period of time, causing the entire Qingyang city to look at them in a new light. At this moment, in front of Xiaoyan and the other two, there were many Lu clan's juniors hiding millions of hashtag. He said that there was a constant flow of people going in and out. In front of the golden signboard, there was a long line of people waiting for the person on the golden signboard to leave. Xiaoyan smiled. Only in this way would it resemble the appearance of a clan working together to advance. Only such a clan would be able to rise in this chaotic continent in one go. Xiaoyan smiled and Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing who were beside him also laughed heartily. How could the higher-ups of the clan not be happy with such a scene in the clan? In their hands, the clan was heading towards prosperity, and this was the happiest thing in their hearts. After all, as long as they were the head of the clan they would think so. When they laughed, quite a few of the Lu clan's disciples cast their gazes over. When everyone saw this, they hurriedly bowed respectfully to Xiaoyan and the other two. The three of them casually waved their hands and stood in front of the million #small. Speaking of before, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing saw that Xiaoyan had been standing in front of the golden plaque, and the two of them were deep in thought. After a moment, Lu Huabai took a few steps forward, came to Xiaoyan's side and asked, "Senior Xiaoyan, are you planning to use this golden plaque? If so, I'll make these little guys move aside right now and let you use it first." Before he finished speaking, he had already walked forward. Xiaoyan hurriedly pulled him back, then helplessly smiled at Lu Huabai and said, "I say, no matter what, you're still the head of a clan. Why do you act like a child when you do things? You didn't see that the person who's currently comprehending has already reached a critical moment. If his luck isn't bad, he should be able to break through on the spot. If you go over and wake him up now, I'm afraid that he won't be able to break through. Instead, his strength will decrease due to the backlash. At that time, I'll see how your clan will explain it to him." Hearing this, Lu Huabai awkwardly smiled. If it really reached that point, he couldn't tell others that Senior Xiaoyan was going to use the golden plaque, right? If that was the case, then he would really be finished. Thinking up to here, Lu Huabai's face once again revealed an embarrassed smile. He didn't speak anymore and quietly waited on the spot. Time slowly passed. Under these respectful gazes, 8 hours quietly flowed by. Lu Huabai finally found the opportunity that he had been waiting for. The people in front of the golden signboard dispersed and respectfully opened a path for Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan smiled and slowly walked forward. Xiaoyan sat cross-legged in front of the golden plaque. Looking at the golden plaque in front of him, the corners of Xiaoyan's mouth revealed a slight smile. He lightly raised his palm and then placed it on the golden plaque. A burst of golden light flashed. Xiaoyan's spiritual strength once again appeared in that world. Xiaoyan looked over. It was still the same wilderness. Mountains towered in all directions, birds and beasts flew freely, and forests were densely covered. But what was different from the past was that those scenes were too illusory, causing people to be unable to see clearly. Was it real or an illusion? Everything made people feel confused and illusory. "Why are you here again? Don't tell me you're just here to chat with me." As Xiaoyan looked around, a middle-aged man's voice suddenly rang out. Xiaoyan wasn't surprised. He slowly withdrew his gaze and turned around to look behind him. A middle-aged man was impressively standing there. This person was Lu Feng. Xiaoyan looked at him and smiled. After a while, he opened his mouth and said, "You should be able to guess why I'm looking for you, right?" Hearing this, Lu Feng slightly frowned. After a moment of silence, he faintly asked, "You're leaving?" Xiaoyan smiled and didn't say anything. Hearing this, Lu Feng frowned. After a while, Lu Feng sighed and slowly said, "You're really leaving? So soon?" This time Xiaoyan nodded. After a moment of hesitation, he still opened his mouth and said, "Originally, I also wanted to stay for a while, but unfortunately if I stay any longer, I'm afraid it will bring disaster to your Lu family. So, I think it's better for me to leave first. At the same time, I'll accomplish my goal in the near future." Hearing this, Lu Feng's relaxed brows frowned again. He looked at Xiaoyan and said with some anger, "As the future guardian of my Lu family, you actually cause trouble everywhere. It's really the style of a junior. It's a shame for your strength." Hearing this, Xiaoyan curled his lips and ignored him. Then, his face became serious and said, "Okay, I won't joke with you. Now, I'll help you stabilize this space and leave my spiritual imprint. Take it as a reward for your juniors to take care of the little girl for me. Also, take it as my compensation to you." Hearing this, Lu Feng raised his brows slightly. Just as he was about to say something, he saw that Xiaoyan had already moved. The seals in his hands changed. Streams of light blasted out and merged into the sky, disappearing as if everything just now was an illusion. Seeing this, Lu Feng's mouth twitched slightly. This guy is really not polite. He treats this place as his own home. Lu Feng helplessly curled his lips. His figure flashed and gradually disappeared into the space. Seeing this, Xiaoyan ignored him. The seals in his hands continued to change. Streams of light continued to dance, shooting into the ground or mountains, spreading out waves of ripples and then disappearing. Xiaoyan withdrew his hand a long while later. His face was filled with a faint smile as he looked at the real world around him. Lu Feng once again revealed his body. Xiaoyan smiled as he looked at Lu Feng and raised his eyebrows. Lu Feng curled his mouth and ignored him. Xiaoyan's body descended from the sky and landed on the ground. Xiaoyan found an enormous mountain rock. A thought passed through his mind and his spiritual strength surged out like floodwater. In merely an instant, the entire mountain rock had become filled with a gentle glow. Xiaoyan let out a long breath. He looked at Lu Feng and smiled. His figure flashed and disappeared from this world. In the outside world, Xiaoyan slowly opened his eyes and stood up. Lu Huabai and Lu Xingqing hurriedly came forward to greet Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan turned his head and smiled at Lu Huabai. I just left a soul mark on this golden plaque for your Lu family's descendants to comprehend. This way the cultivation of your Lu family's descendants should increase a lot faster. Hearing this, everyone was pleasantly surprised. They all bowed to Xiaoyan to express their gratitude. Xiaoyan smiled back at them. After that, Xiaoyan saw Lianer and the little beast that came with Xiaoyan when it heard that he had returned. Seeing the little beast, Xiaoyan's eyes lit up. He bent over and hugged it. He lowered his head slightly and muttered something. No one knew what he was saying, but the little beast kept nodding its head. This made everyone click their tongues. After Xiaoyan finished speaking to the little beast, he turned his head to look at Lu Huabai and the others. He said a few words and turned to leave the Lu family's residence, leaving behind the Lu family members. Chapter 44. Everything was quiet and peaceful. The forest was vast and boundless. A cool breeze blew past and a blade-like wave swept through the trees. It brought with it a loud rustling sound as it brushed past, bringing with it pieces of fallen leaves. Bang! In an instant, the sound of flesh colliding rang out in the forest. A white-clothed figure stood at the top of a huge tree. His body was slightly unstable as he swayed left and right. Xiaoyan shook his head slightly and tossed the giddy feeling in his head out of his body. He looked at the spot where he was currently standing and frowned slightly. With a move of his body, he floated down from the top of the tree and landed on the ground. Looking at the huge magical beast corpse on the ground, Xiaoyan curled his lips. This was a rank 6 cloud-splitting leopard. Its forte was its speed and it was extremely agile. Unfortunately, Xiaoyan was practicing the sky extinction steps here. However, Xiaoyan wasn't able to control his speed and direction. As a result, this cloud-splitting leopard was very unlucky and was hit by Xiaoyan. How could a rank 6 magical beast's body be compared to Xiaoyan's, a half-emperor level expert's body? Hence, in the face of Xiaoyan's frightening physical body and the speed of the sky extinction steps, the rank 6 physical body of the cloud-splitting leopard was killed by Xiaoyan in an extremely strange manner with just one strike. Xiaoyan had a strange expression on his face. He looked at the cloud-splitting leopard that was lying motionless on the ground and bowed slightly. He made an apologetic expression and then disappeared in a flash. Xiaoyan had already left the Lu clan for 5 days. In these 5 days, Xiaoyan had been walking towards the ancient wildlands that Lu Huabai had told him about. He said that there, Xiaoyan would be able to find the method to leave the southern region. When Xiaoyan heard this, he felt a little strange. However, he did not pursue the matter. After leaving the Lu family, Xiaoyan headed towards the ancient savage city and practiced the sky extinction steps. Unfortunately, the sky extinction steps was indeed worthy of being a man-class do technique. The difficulty of practicing it was not low at all. Even Xiaoyan could be said to have made no progress after these 5 days of practice. The Sky Annihilation Steps was a set of agility do technique that focused on the training of spatial energy. It did not focus on speed but on nothingness. Once cultivated to greater success, one would be able to ignore the rules of space and walk on the ground as if there was nothing there. Everything that was real would be illusory. In the blink of an eye, one would be able to travel 1,000 miles, surpassing life and death. Outside of 1,000 years, one would be able to chase after illusions. This sky extinction step was truly miraculous. Even its owner back then, Lord Jianghu, was unable to completely comprehend it. The heavenly extinction steps mainly relied on the use of space. It allowed the space to move with you and not block your way. The sky extinction steps had a total of 3 stages: wind movement, soaring clouds, and riding the sky. Each stage was further divided into 3 small stages: entry, small success, and great success. The first stage, wind movement, created wind under one's feet. The wind moved with one's feet. When one moved with the wind, one's feet created wind. It appeared as if one was moving with the wind, but in reality the wind moved with the person, reversing the way of the world and turning it into a wondrous state. The wind movement stage at the entry stage stirred up the wind and clouds, causing the world to be in chaos, causing others to be unable to sense the direction of the user's aura. It was extremely miraculous. It borrowed the power of the world and turned it into an aid for the user. It was endlessly miraculous. At the small success stage, the power was even greater. However, it was no longer as chaotic as when one entered the entry stage. Instead, it was orderly, stirring up the wind and clouds to aid the user. At the great success stage, the wind and clouds would move and one's aura would change. It was like the world, causing the opponent to be unable to sense the user. At this moment, the sky extinction steps would truly be opened and become an aid for the practitioner. The Soaring Clouds realm mainly focused on speed. After entering the Soaring Clouds Great Realm, a cultivator's speed in all aspects would sharply increase, increasing the cultivator's overall strength. This made Xiaoyan's heart burn with passion. Unfortunately, the Soaring Clouds Great Realm wasn't something that could be easily reached. The Soaring Clouds Great Realm mainly pursued the cultivator's ability to control the wind when they were in the wind movement stage. If a cultivator's ability to control the wind was strong enough, then in terms of speed, even wind attribute cultivators of the same level would be able to completely crush their opponents in terms of speed. From this, it could be seen that the sky extinction steps had high requirements for each stage. If one wanted to become stronger, they had to be able to control each stage with ease. The last stage, riding the sky extinction step. This sky extinction steps minimum requirement was to control the power of space. This control was also different from ordinary control. The minimum requirement for this kind of control over the power of space was to comprehend the Great Way of the Void. The Great Way of the Void was one of the tens of thousands of Great Way rules between heaven and earth. Between heaven and earth, for tens of thousands of years, humans had always been pursuing the Great Way of longevity and the Great Way of immortality. Their desire was to live forever and be the only one in heaven and earth. The Great Way of immortality, or in other words, the Great Way of heaven. Unfortunately, the Great Way of immortality was extremely difficult. Tens of thousands of years was the final limit. Immortality was just an illusion. Although immortality was difficult, it was possible to attain the Great Way of immortality. Since ancient times, there hadn't been an expert who had attained the Great Way of immortality. However, there wasn't a single Great Way of heaven and earth. Other than the Great Way of immortality, there were all kinds of Great Ways of heaven and earth. Since ancient times, many human experts had discovered many different kinds of Great Ways of heaven and earth. The Great Ways of heaven and earth had existed since ancient times. The ones that people were familiar with were the Great Way of chaos, Great Way of lightning, Great Way of cloud and water, Great Way of wind, Great Way of fire, Great Way of light, Great Way of darkness, Great Way of life, Great Way of death, Great Way of undead, etc. Among them, the Great Way of chaos, Great Way of lightning, Great Way of fire, and Great Way of light had the strongest offensive power. Among them, the Great Way of cloud and water and the Great Way of life had the strongest life force. Generally, they were used for auxiliary purposes and were also quite mysterious. Of course, the other Great Ways also had their own benefits. All of them had endless magical uses and were incomparably mysterious. The use of Great Ways was also a part of one's strength. The strength of one's Great Way of immortality depended on how much the cultivator had comprehended. After half a day, Xiaoyan stopped with a slightly messy body. In this morning, Xiaoyan didn't know how many demonic beasts he had killed. His body was extremely messy. Xiaoyan shook his head helplessly. He leaped up and stood on the top of an ancient tree. He looked at the waves of trees that swept over from afar. Xiaoyan deeply inhaled a breath of fresh air. He opened his arms and closed his eyes, allowing the wind and waves to come at him and blow past his body. The wind blew past, causing Xiaoyan's robe to flutter, emitting waves of whistling wind. Xiaoyan's fingers opened slightly as he felt the air flowing out from between his fingers. Hearing the sound of the wind by his ear, Xiaoyan's legs moved slightly as he adjusted his body's angle. He allowed the wind to hit his body and allowed the ferocious air flow to pass through his fingers. Xiaoyan's robes fluttered and his hair danced wildly. He closed his eyes tightly and quietly listened to everything. He sensed everything around him and the wind on his body. His body repeatedly shifted left and right, changing his position as though he was adjusting something. A moment later, Xiaoyan's eyes abruptly opened. His right leg took half a step forward. This action appeared extremely strange. However, the moment his leg paused, Xiaoyan's body abruptly turned back. In the next instant, a white-clothed figure slowly appeared a few hundred meters away from Xiaoyan. This person was Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan turned his head and glanced at the spot where he had been standing a moment ago. An afterimage gradually disappeared. Xiaoyan smiled and his face revealed a joyous expression. Chapter 45. First layer of the sky extinction steps, wind movement. Xiaoyan smiled faintly. His face revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. That move just now already indicated that he had comprehended a thread of the concept of the Great Way of Wind. It was also because of this that Xiaoyan was able to successfully use the sky extinction steps in that instant. Xiaoyan let out a long breath. He looked at his current location and circulated the dou qi in his body. With a thought, Xiaoyan's body instantly appeared 100 feet away. As he moved repeatedly, Xiaoyan used this opportunity to properly practice for an hour. Although he often lost control, it was much better compared to before. Xiaoyan's body flashed and appeared on the ground. His body shook slightly and stabilized his swaying body. Letting out a breath, the corners of Xiaoyan's mouth revealed a smile. After a long while, he had finally more or less grasped it. The sky extinction steps still required wind to practice. Only in this way would he be able to experience the true essence of the wind movement stage and reach the great mastery stage. Currently, the sky extinction steps could be considered as having officially started practicing. This also meant that he was not far from entering the door. At that time, even if the old flame demon ghost personally chased after him, Xiaoyan would likely possess the ability to completely suppress him. Xiaoyan's eyes narrowed. His expression instantly became incomparably cold, causing the surrounding space to emit waves of dark and cold wind whistling sounds. Xiaoyan's expression suddenly relaxed. His mouth muttered softly, "Old flame demon ghost, although I don't know how you know me, since you have come to provoke me and I let you escape the last time, there will definitely not be a next time." In the blink of an eye, a day had passed and it was already the morning of the second day. Xiaoyan woke up from his training. He looked at the sky and the corners of his mouth lifted into a smile. It was as if the thing that he had been waiting for a long time had finally arrived. Today's weather was not very good. Dark clouds that were not very thick drifted in the sky. However, these dark clouds caused a trace of surprise to flash across Xiaoyan's eyes. Xiaoyan's figure moved and appeared in the sky in the blink of an eye. Above his head was the gloomy dark cloud. Xiaoyan's arrival appeared to have caused the originally irritable dark clouds to become a little angry. When Xiaoyan arrived, rumbling sounds rang out from the dark clouds. Xiaoyan smiled. He lifted his eyes and looked around. The area within a radius of a few miles was covered by the dark clouds. Although the dark clouds were very thin, it was enough for Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's figure moved and his figure, which was already standing in the sky, rose even higher, straight to the top of the sky. Boom! Before his figure arrived, the heavenly thunder raged. Following a rumbling sound that resounded across the sky, a not very strong lightning snake furiously struck down towards Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's expression did not change. His figure rushed forward and his arm bent upwards. His palm tightly clenched into a fist, and met the furious lightning with a punch. Boom! When the two collided, a dazzling white light flashed. Following which, a thunderous sound that resounded across the entire sky shook the horizon. The white light flashed and Xiaoyan's figure appeared. However, the current Xiaoyan was no longer at his previous position. Instead, he flew directly below the dark clouds and stood proudly. The corner of Xiaoyan's mouth was lifted into an arc. He glanced at the thunder clouds above his head that were repeatedly churning and emitting waves of rumbling thunder because of him. Xiaoyan faintly smiled. He raised his hands and the seals in his hands began to change. Looking at the seals, it was the cultivation seals for the sky annihilation steps. As numerous seals were formed in Xiaoyan's hand, a dark wind that carried waves of chilliness blew across the sky. If one were to say that this wind was not caused by Xiaoyan, it was likely that no one would believe it. However, after only one night, Xiaoyan was able to summon the cold wind when he once again used this heaven end steps. This did indeed cause people to feel disbelief. When Xiaoyan saw this, a smile appeared on his face. The seals in his hands paused and his figure instantly disappeared. In the next instant, 100 feet away, Xiaoyan's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared again. Xiaoyan's playful manner seemed to have angered the churning thundercloud. The thundercloud churned and emitted waves of rumbling sounds. When Xiaoyan's figure appeared again, a thunderbolt furiously struck down. In just an instant, Xiaoyan was turned into nothingness. The dark clouds rumbled and rumbled like mocking laughter. In the next instant, Xiaoyan's figure once again appeared 100 feet away. The corners of Xiaoyan's mouth curled into a smile, as he indifferently looked at the dark clouds above his head. Xiaoyan's figure moved and disappeared. However, the dark wind that covered the sky suddenly surged, as if it had turned into a gust of wind, and whizzed in a certain direction. In the next instant, Xiaoyan's figure suddenly flashed, and his position was exactly where the dark wind was heading. Xiaoyan felt the gust of wind sweeping over his body, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He slightly closed his eyes and muttered in a low voice, "Wind rising, cloud gathering momentum, I can finally do it now." Wind rising, cloud gathering momentum, will depend on today's luck. Wind rises and clouds surge, wind moves, minor success. Wind and clouds agitate, soaring cloud success. Heaven trampling might, sky splitting ultimate steps. These sentences were the ones that appeared when he was comprehending the heaven annihilation steps yesterday. Presumably, these were the cultivation experiences of those who had succeeded in cultivating the heaven annihilation steps in the past. They were intentionally left in this scroll so that the later generations could easily cultivate it. In these sentences, each sentence corresponded to a realm. Wind rising, cloud gathering momentum, small accomplishment referred to the wind rising realm. It required a cultivator to bring about the wind and clouds when practicing the sky-splitting ultimate steps. Wind rising, cloud gathering momentum, wind rising, cloud gathering momentum. When a cultivator truly achieved this step, then the wind rising realm of the sky-splitting ultimate steps could be considered to have succeeded in learning it. Wind rising, cloud gathering momentum, sky-splitting ultimate steps. This sentence was even simpler and easier to understand. Wind rising, cloud gathering momentum was only the momentum of the sky-splitting ultimate steps. How could momentum be of great use in battle? Wind rising, cloud gathering momentum was the true power of the sky-splitting ultimate steps. The sky-splitting ultimate steps borrowed the momentum of the wind and clouds to move unhindered between heaven and earth, gathering wind and clouds, and combining heavenly lightning to suppress the enemy. It could be said to be using the sky-splitting ultimate steps to suppress the enemy. It had both offensive and defensive capabilities, and its power could shake the heavens. The last sentence was not explained in detail on the scroll. Perhaps it was only the speculation of that senior, and Xiaoyan did not delve into it. However, just from the surface meaning of those words, if the sky extinction steps were to be cultivated to the great success stage, its power would not be small. Perhaps, it would really be like what was described on the scroll, the might of trampling the heavens, the might of the sky-splitting steps. Chapter 46. Xiaoyan's figure wandered back and forth within the thunderclouds. His footsteps did not seem to be methodical. However, it was this unmethodical footsteps that allowed Xiaoyan to wander freely within the thunderclouds. The thunderclouds churned, the wind howled angrily, lightning struck, and the wind and clouds surged. The thin, cloud-like dark clouds were already unable to restrain their anger. Heavenly lightning struck continuously, falling crazily. Between the thunderclouds, shadows were constantly smashing. Xiaoyan closed his eyes slightly, a smile on his lips. His face was calm. He naturally knew that this cloud was angry. However, his expression did not change. With his hands behind his back, he moved his feet slightly, passing through the dark, thick fog. At least it was not much for Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's body moved slowly. His footsteps gently shifted, perhaps to the left or to the right. His body followed and swayed gently. As he swayed and moved, he carried waves of wild wind that swept through the thin dark clouds, churning unceasingly within the thunderclouds. Xiaoyan's seemingly playful behavior caused the heavenly lightning to strike wildly. Roars of anger sounded continuously, and bolts of heavenly lightning struck down furiously. However, it was a pity that Xiaoyan dodged every single one of them. Behind every single time, there was a mysterious heavenly law. It seemed like luck, but it was also mysterious. Finally, the heavenly lightning this time seemed to have a plan. As Xiaoyan continued to move left and right, a lightning cage slowly appeared, trapping Xiaoyan within. It was as if it wanted to use the power of the heavens to suppress Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's expression did not change. The corner of his mouth still held a faint smile, as if all of this had nothing to do with him. His face was as calm as the wind and clouds. Xiaoyan's calm expression seemed to have triggered the heavenly lightning. The lightning cage was like a circular iron cage, trapping Xiaoyan within, emitting bursts of thunder. All of a sudden, lightning flashed in all directions. Bolts of lightning that were as thick as an adult's thigh shot towards Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan's face was calm as he looked at the lightning bolts that were approaching him. He did not move at all. However, just as the lightning bolts were about to hit him, Xiaoyan's body turned. His feet crossed on the spot, and the wind and clouds swirled under his feet. He turned in a very strange posture and circled around on the spot. The lightning bolts that were heading towards Xiaoyan were also very strange. They circled around the direction that Xiaoyan had just circled around before shooting towards the distant sky. Then they exploded with a loud bang, emitting bursts of dazzling lightning and forth before disappearing. The corner of Xiaoyan's mouth was slowly lifted into a smile. His body continued to roam within the furious thunder clouds. while Xiaoyan's, a group of Lu clan, a group of people in the Azure Sun City and the Lu clan. There were not many people, only 3 of them. However, they caused the entire Lu clan to be extremely shocked. This was because they were from the Azure Cloud Mansion. The 3 of them were quite strong. At the very least, they could be considered top experts in this area. Among them, the strongest one had reached the level of a 6-star Dozun. The other 2 were 5-star Dozuns. Their strength could be considered top in this area. At this moment, the 3 of them were standing side by side in the Lu clan's meeting hall. The 6-star Dozun originally wanted to sit on the main seat in the hall. However, after thinking about it in his heart, he ultimately gave up on this idea. Lu Huabai stood up from the clan leader's seat. He extended his left hand and pointed at the row of 3 chairs on the left side of the hall. His face carried a smile as he spoke to the 3 of them. "The 3 of you, please take your seats." His words had just sounded when the eyes of everyone in the hall hardened. At this moment, there were already quite a number of people standing in their seats in the hall. The only thing missing was for the clan leader to tell them to take their seats. However, at this moment, everyone's eyes were instantly dull. One could see a beautiful snow-white cat standing in front of the first chair on the left. At the very least, it was a cat in everyone's eyes. At this moment, one of the cat's paws was stepping on a cushion. Its face was eagerly looking at everyone as it blinked its bright eyes. The cat pulled back its paws and pulled the cushion in front of it. Its body rose, its butt twisted, and it sat on the cushion in front of everyone's eyes. Then, in front of everyone's eyes, it retracted its 4 claws, coiled its tail in front of its body and shrunk its neck. Then a series of gurgling sounds rang out. The sound wasn't loud, but in this silent hall, it was indeed the loudest sound. Soon after, this gurgling sound was drowned out by the sound of saliva being swallowed. The corner of the eyes of the Lu clan's clan leader, Lu Huabai, and the 6-star Dozun, who was the leader of the 3, twitched. After which, the 6-star Dozun frowned slightly. He looked at Lu Huabai, who was standing in front of the main seat. His face revealed a displeased expression as he let out a cold snort. That 6-star Dozun looked at Lu Huabai and coldly laughed. "Clan leader Lu, your cat is really not afraid of strangers. You have raised it well." Lu Huabai's expression changed slightly when he heard this. Lu Xinqing's expression was also ugly. This white cat was something that Xiaoyan had asked them to take care of. What the cat did had nothing to do with them. Moreover, even though it was said to be taking care of it, it was actually just leaving the cat in their Lu clan. They did not know what Xiaoyan's intention was. However, he had suddenly said that they belonged to the Lu clan. How could they accept this? The change in expression on Lu Huabai's face was naturally seen by the 3 experts from the Azure Cloud Mansion. The 3 of them looked at each other and exchanged glances. The 6-star Dozun, who was the leader, nodded in an undetectable manner. After which he stopped moving. Lu Huabai was just about to open his mouth to say something when he saw that 6-star Dozun emit a cold laugh. He waved his sleeve and coldly said, "What? Are you afraid in your heart? Weren't you very confident a few days ago? You actually dared to kill an elite Dozun from my Azure Cloud Mansion. TSK, you are really bold. Where is that elder from your Lu clan? Isn't he very strong? Ask him to come out. I want to see just how strong he is." His eyes drifted in all directions as he spoke. It was as though he was afraid that something would suddenly appear. However, the more he spoke, the more arrogant his laughter became. This laughter caused everyone present to frown slightly. They exchanged glances with each other. Their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the 6-star Dozun. However, no one other than Lu Xinqing and Lu Huabai noticed that everyone present felt their hearts palpitating because of the 6-star Dozun. The cat, which was originally snoring, had already woken up at this moment. Its bright eyes were slightly opened, revealing 2 thin black lines. Its bright eyes were filled with an endless chill. It caused one to feel as though one was within an ancient ice block. It was incomparably dark and cold. Chapter 47. Please recommend me. Please recommend me. Qingyang City Lu Mansion Discussion Hall. Arrogant and wanton laughter endlessly reverberated within the palace. Other than the 2 people in the palace and Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing, whose gazes were attracted by the white cat, the other people all had faces full of fear. These 3 people were not people that their Lu clan could contend with. At the very least, without Xiaoyan, their Lu clan was unable to contend with them. After the laughter, that 6-star Dozun coldly smiled as he looked at Lu Huabai. His eyes were filled with ridicule. Lu Huabai, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes. He tilted his head to the left and looked at the 6-star Dozun with an indifferent expression. He gently turned his head and looked at the first elder. The first elder noticed the gaze that Lu Huabai had shot over. The corner of his mouth moved slightly, carrying an unknown arc immediately. He shook his head in a manner that could not be detected and ignored Lu Huabai. Lu Huabai's eyes once again turned to that 6-star Dozun. Both of his eyes narrowed and the corner of his mouth was lifted. He revealed a smile that did not appear to be as harmonious as it appeared. This also caused that 6-star Dozun to frown. He turned his head to look at the other 2 elite Dozuns beside him. Before he could express any thoughts, Lu Huabai's voice was suddenly emitted. "You are an expert from the Azure Cloud Mansion. I think that you have come to the southwestern border to search for a new elite Dozun, right? Haha. Unfortunately, my Lu clan does not have one. As for the expert that you have mentioned, haha, the old me also does not know where he is." The eyes of the 3 experts from the Azure Cloud Mansion suddenly shot toward Lu Huabai after these words were uttered. Their eyes stared intently at Lu Huabai. The 6-star Dozun, who was the leader, narrowed his eyes. He coldly snorted and said, "Clan head Lu, I think that it is better for you to speak honestly. That expert has entered your Lu mansion in front of the eyes of everyone in Qingyang City. Now that you say that you do not know, do you treat the 3 of us as fools?" These words were neither light nor heavy. However, everyone could sense the pressure that belonged to an elite Dozun instantly spread throughout the entire hall when these words left their mouths. This caused everyone to feel as though they were unable to breathe. Umph. A cold snort was emitted. Other than the 2 elite Dozuns, everyone in the hall had a sudden change in expression. Their faces began to flush red. Even their breathing had become a little rough. Lu Hua and Bai Chang's faces were flushed, and the veins on their foreheads bulged. They endured the pressure, gritted their teeth and said with difficulty, "Your Excellency's way of doing things is a bit too much. That elder has indeed come to my Lu family. However, when an expert does something, does he need to ask for instructions from me, Lu Huabai, the clan head of a small family? Not to mention that I don't know where that senior is right now. Even if I did, I'm afraid you wouldn't be able to do anything to him." That 6-star Dozun from the Azure Cloud Mansion involuntarily frowned when he heard this. Could it be that this person really possessed some ability to gain the support of the members of the Lu clan? The old man swiftly exchanged glances with the other 2. That 6-star Dozun once again emitted a cold snort. Only then did everyone pant as they looked at the 3 of them. They did not dare to relax even a little. However, no one noticed that the large white cat, which had been quietly lying on the cushion, had nodded its head in an extremely human-like manner at this moment. A pair of bright eyes looked at Lu Huabai before closing once again, after which it fell into a deep sleep. It was as though everything in this large hall had nothing to do with it. Lu Huabai inhaled a deep breath of air. His eyes once again recovered its calmness. He smiled, looked at the 6-star Dozun and laughed. "Haha, since you have come from so far away, you are definitely not here for my Lu clan, right? You are definitely here for the Wu clan. That ancestor of the Wu clan is indeed extraordinary. He is actually able to break through at such an age. It is indeed a blessing from the heavens." Lu Huabai's originally praising tone changed when he spoke until this point. He paused for a moment before opening his mouth to continue. Unfortunately, although his strength has increased, he has become muddle-headed. He dares to offend anyone. He clearly knows that Elder has stayed in my Lu clan, but he still recklessly barged in. In the end before he could even display the strength that he had painstakingly trained, tsk. Life is really fragile. Lu Huabai sighed. However, he looked at the 6-star Dozun and quickly opened his mouth to speak. "Sir, you must place your life as the most important. You can enjoy all the blessings as long as you are alive. If you lose your life, what can you do even if you have riches?" That 6-star Dozun was non-committal as he coldly snorted upon hearing this. The 2 elite Dozuns beside him frowned slightly upon seeing this. Such a situation was not something that they were willing to see. Once the Wu clan was destroyed, this Green Sun City would become the sole hegemony of the Lu clan. In the future, the Lu clan would definitely rise. At that time, the Lu clan would definitely be able to obtain many benefits. The ultimate goal of the 3 of them coming to Green Sun City this time around was to use the matter of the Wu clan to suppress the Lu clan and get the Lu clan to agree that they would hand over a portion of the benefits and resources that they obtained in the future. However, from the looks of it, the Lu clan was planning to use force to reject them. In this way, would it not mean that they had made this trip for nothing? They had already waited outside of Green Sun City for many days. However, they did not dare to enter because they had sensed Xiao Yan's terrifying aura. This continued until a couple of days ago when the 3 of them were unable to detect Xiao Yan's aura. In order to be safe, The three of them had endured for a couple of days before entering. It was unexpected that they had been defeated by that mysterious expert. The three of them exchanged a couple of glances with each other. A moment later, that six-star Dozun finally steeled his heart. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Lu Huabai, who was seated in the main seat. His eyes were overbearing and sharp. They were filled with a ruthless expression. Humph! The old me was nearly frightened by you. What a great clan head of the Lu clan. What a great clan. You actually dare to tease the old me. You actually used a trash who had already fled to scare the old me. You have really eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Lu Huabai. No matter what happens today, you must give the old me a satisfactory explanation. Otherwise, that six-star Dozun's face was filled with ruthlessness. His expression was ferocious and murderous aura surged all over his body. He was just about to continue speaking when he was suddenly silenced. His entire body was stunned as cold perspiration appeared on his head. He did not even dare to breathe loudly. His eyes were filled with a horror that could not be removed. Otherwise, what do you want to do? Destroy the Lu clan? Kill that trash that you have mentioned that has fled? Or do you want to capture him and slowly torture him so that the members of the Lu clan can see just how useless this savior of theirs is? A mere six-star Dozun actually dares to say such big words. You really don't know the meaning of life and death. The expressions of the three people below the stage changed drastically when these words were uttered. They knelt down together with a bang and kowtowed as they admitted their mistake. Chapter 48. Please recommend me. Please recommend me. What? You don't want to attack me now? A cold snort was emitted. The entire place was silent. No one dared to make a sound. One could see three white-robed old men kneeling in the middle of the large hall. They were repeatedly kowtowing and admitting their mistakes. The eyes of the six-star Dozun, who was the leader, suddenly shrunk when he heard these words. His entire body trembled. A moment later, he finally opened his mouth and spoke with a trembling voice. Say, Elder, you must be joking. How would the three of us dare to have such daring thoughts? Elder's strength is monstrous. How would the three of us dare to touch it? That six-star Dozun swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His words were spoken with great difficulty. His breathing was tense, but it was extremely slow. It was as though he was afraid of angering this elder. That person coldly laughed when he heard this. This caused the entire large hall to shake 3 times. The large hall shook and dust that had accumulated over the years was brought down from the beams. The dust drifted down, causing the entire large hall to appear like celestial dust clouds had scattered over the world. However, the strange thing was, the dust that was falling from the sky actually landed on the 3 powerhouses from the Azure Cloud Mansion. It caused them to raise their brows when they saw this. After the dust fell, the interior of the hall became clear. When one inhaled a breath of air, one would not feel any dust floating in the air. It felt incomparably fresh. The carpet of the large hall appeared to be very clean. There were no traces of dust. Moreover, if one were to carefully observe it, one would discover some new clues. At this moment, not only was the carpet not dirty, but it was also much cleaner than before. The entire carpet appeared incomparably bright, as though it was new. Everyone's eyes swept around. In the end, other than Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing, everyone else's eyes were red. Threads of crystal-clear tears flowed under their eyes. They were just short of a small opportunity to burst out of their eyes. Even Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing did not have much of a change on their faces. However, if one were to carefully observe, one would be able to clearly see that their cheeks were telling everyone the emotions in their hearts. The only ones who were unable to laugh were the 3 people from the Azure Cloud Mansion who were kneeling in the middle of the large hall. Their bodies were trembling for some unknown reason. At this moment, the 3 of them looked extremely comical on the surface. The 3 of them were kneeling in the hall. Their robes were already colorless. Their backs were covered in a thick layer of dust that was as thick as snow. The 3 of them were covered in dust and grime, and they looked extremely miserable. If one were to look down from above, they would not be able to see anyone. They would only be able to see 3 mounds of dirt in the middle of the hall. At this moment, the faces of the 3 people were ashen. They clenched their teeth and the sound of grinding teeth came from their mouths. Their faces were filled with anger as they knelt on the ground. Their eyes were filled with unwillingness. Boom. All of a sudden, a strong gust of wind shot towards the 3 of them, startling them. Hastily, they stood up and circulated their battle chi to meet the incoming attack. Boom. With a muffled sound, the 3 of them were blasted out of the hall. They rolled on the ground a few times in a sorry state before they managed to stop themselves with great difficulty. The three of them stopped and stood up. The eyes of the six-star Dozun leading the group were bright red. He stared at the large hall that was shrouded by gray fog and furiously roared. Elder, what is the meaning of this? You have already toyed with the three of us, yet you still want to kill us? You have really failed to live up to your name as an elder. Brat, you have become bold. Earlier, the old me was merely being kind and wanted to help the three of you get rid of the dust on your bodies. Unexpectedly, the three of you actually stood up and blocked my attack. Everyone curled their lips when these words were spoken. Based on the strength of the gust of wind earlier, it was obvious that the other party wanted to kill the three of them. Yet, at this moment, the other party was blaming them for blocking it. How could they not be on guard in the face of death? Who knew if the other party wanted to kill them? If the other party really wanted to kill them and they did not block it, they would have lost their lives in vain. Who would do such a stupid thing? Even Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing curled the corners of their mouths. They looked at each other but did not say anything. The corners of the eyes of the three Azure Cloud Mansion's elders twitched when they heard this. In the end, the other party was still blaming them. Before the three of them could react, the mysterious elder once again opened his mouth and spoke. Ugh, however, it is fine if you want to block it. You actually slandered a good person and said that I am unworthy of being called an elder and that I do not have a benevolent heart. Now tell me, am I worthy or am I unworthy? The moment his words sounded, the entire place became quiet. The three Dozuns from the Azure Cloud Mansion instantly felt an unknown pressure surging toward them. In just an instant, it covered the three of them, causing them to feel an incomparably terrifying pressure assault their hearts. They were incomparably shocked. The eyes of the six-star Dozun, who was the leader, suddenly shrunk to the size of a needle tip. He ignored the expressions of the other two beside him and hurriedly opened his mouth to speak. Elder lives up to your reputation. You have helped the Azure Cloud Mansion eliminate those who do not abide by the rules. You uphold righteousness and help the weak. You are naturally worthy of being called an elder. These words were spoken in a righteous manner and possessed the demeanor of a benevolent person. However, everyone who heard it only curled their lips and sighed. They turned their heads to one side and no longer looked at him. That six-star Dozun's old face also turned red. His face was slightly hot. However, he merely turned his eyes and did not say anything. It was a long while later before that elder opened his mouth and spoke again with a smile. Ha 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 ha. Since this is the case, I will forget about it. You can just randomly compensate me with something that you scolded me earlier. Is that all right? The three of them hurriedly smiled and nodded in agreement when they heard this. That elder quickly laughed after seeing this. In that case, the old me shall not ask for anything more. I think that all of you will not be able to take out anything good. In that case, I shall be a little more benevolent. All of you can randomly give me 500,000 spirit coins. These words were spoken in an extremely indifferent manner. However, the faces of everyone present twitched wildly when they heard it. 500,000 spirit coins? Casually taking it? What did he treat spirit coins as? Were spirit coins so worthless? Everyone was speechless. The three Dozuns from the Azure Cloud Mansion were even more speechless. The three of them faced each other and shook their heads. 500,000 spirit coins was an astronomical figure to any one of them. Even if all three of them were to take it out together, the pressure would still be quite great. The three of them exchanged a few words. In the end, they still frowned. Their faces were filled with helplessness. It was a long while later before that six-star Dozun finally bit his lips and slowly opened his mouth. Elder, this 500,000 spirit coins is indeed a little too much. Huh? You still find it too much? I think that all of you are unwilling. The three of you only have a total of 500,000 spirit coins. Compared to your little lives, I am already very benevolent. Chapter 49. Please recommend me. Please recommend me. Everyone's faces twitched when they heard this. The three Dozuns from the Azure Cloud Mansion were also speechless for a long time. Benevolence. He actually dared to say such words. 500,000 spirit coins. It was already not bad for each of them to have over 100,000 spirit coins. This would require years of accumulation. However, this fellow actually asked for 500,000 spirit coins. What did he think spirit coins were? The three of them faced each other and frowned. Their hearts were spinning rapidly. However, there was nothing they could do. The six-star Dozun could only muster his courage and speak to the mysterious elder after hesitating for a moment. Elder, the three of us are indeed not wealthy enough. We are unable to take out so many spirit coins. The three of us only have 370,000 spirit coins. I hope that elder can give us some time. We will quickly return to the Azure Cloud Mansion and retrieve the spirit coins. We will definitely send them to Elder as soon as possible. Do you think I will believe you? Can you still come back after leaving? A voice that was filled with anger sounded. The three of them immediately felt chills all over their bodies. Their bodies involuntarily trembled. Just as they were about to reply, the voice sounded again. Alright, I feel annoyed when I see all of you. Scram. If you dare to cause trouble in the Lu clan again, there won't be a next time. The three of them quickly kowtowed and thanked the elder when they heard this. They hurriedly turned around and were about to leave when the mysterious voice sounded again. Wait, leave the spirit coins behind. The three of them no longer dared to delay after hearing this. After leaving the spirit coins behind, they quickly left the Lu clan and Azure Sun City. They fled for their lives toward the Azure Cloud Mansion. In the Lu clan's discussion hall, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing had asked their clan members to leave. Everyone knew what the two of them wanted to do. Hence, they cooperated and quickly left the hall. The two of them turned their heads. However, their eyes hardened. The white cat was nowhere to be seen in the hall. The hall was empty and there was no one else in sight. Only the cushion that still had some warmth was lying quietly on the ground. Lu Huabai shook his head gently. He stepped forward and was about to pick up the cushion when his eyes narrowed. A few strands of white hair were left on the cushion. Originally, Lu Huabai didn't pay much attention to it. However, just as he was about to pick up the cushion, he seemed to have discovered something. It was unknown whether the falling white hairs were intentional or not, but they actually formed a sentence. The meaning within the sentence caused Lu Huabai to reveal a joyous smile. That sentence read, "Not bad, your Lu family is worthy of his help. I think highly of you." The matter of the Lu family had come to an end, but there was still another matter that had just begun. This was a mountain range. The mountains rose and fell like giant beasts crawling on the ground. Waves of beast roars accompanied the wilderness of the giant mountains. The mountain was filled with fog. What was strange was that the fog was actually red. There were puddles of water left on the ground where the fog was dense. However, the color of those puddles of water caused one to feel a sinister feeling. The reason for that was because the puddles of water were also red. The chilly wind blew, causing the puddles of water to ripple in all directions. Waves of water spread out and formed the shape of an ordinary smiling face. When paired with the bright red color, it appeared incomparably evil. Whoosh! The dense fog in the forest was forcibly torn apart, leaving behind a vacuum space. Not long later it once again closed. A human figure had already flashed for a long time in the less than 1,000th of the time just now. A few hours later, deep within the mountain range at the end of the blood-colored fog in front of a small valley, a human figure with a sinister mask on his face slowly appeared. Black fog lingered around his body. Under the mask, a pair of sinister old eyes looked at the valley. He lowered his head and looked at the black fog that was not very dense. Within his eyes, a malicious expression was revealed. After a good while, the human figure with black fog lingering around his body moved and flew towards the valley. He left behind a malicious oath where he stood. "Xiaoyan, when I find you next time and complete my mission, I will tear your body into 10,000 pieces and avenge my heavy injuries." This person was actually the old flame demon ghost who escaped when Xiaoyan was not paying attention back then. Not long after, the old flame demon ghost arrived in front of a pitch-black hall. 300 meters away from the hall was an energy barrier that could be seen clearly from the inside out, tightly protecting the entire hall. From the outside, one could not see any difference between this place and the mountain range. The corners of the old flame demon ghost's mouth curled into a smile as he looked at the pitch-black door. His hands rapidly formed a series of profound seals. The surface of the pitch-black door flickered with a faint light. In just a moment, the door opened with a creak. A pitch-black tunnel appeared before the old flame demon ghost's eyes. That tunnel was extremely dark, as if even the space inside was pitch-black and sticky. When one looked at it, one would feel a sense of fear surging from the depths of one's soul. It was as if that was not a tunnel that led to the depths of the hall but a Yellow Springs road that led to hell. It caused one's soul to tremble and tremble. The old flame demon ghost opened his sinister old eyes and inhaled a deep breath of air. He once again looked at the pitch-black tunnel. Even though he had walked an unknown number of times, a thick feeling of death would surge from the bottom of his heart each time he saw this pitch-black tunnel. If not for the normal experience of walking through this tunnel in the past still reminding him in his mind, it was likely that the current him would have already turned around and fled. After calming himself, he once again inhaled a deep breath of air. After which he slowly exhaled. His throat rolled as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His heavy footsteps slowly stepped forward, walking into the pitch-black tunnel. After he entered the hall, the door to the hall was once again slowly shut with a creaking sound. This place had also turned into a dark and gloomy forest. It was no different from the rest of the world. A wave of heavy footsteps sounded. A human figure gradually appeared at the entrance of the pitch-black tunnel. This person was the old flame demon ghost. Clang clang clang. Accompanied by the sound of metal clanging, pitch-black chains engraved with mysterious runes instantly sealed the exit of the passage. A couple of black-clothed human figures whose faces could not be clearly seen appeared at the entrance of the tunnel. Each of them held a chain in their hands, prepared to deal with any sudden situation. The human figures appeared from the tunnel. Everyone's bodies flashed when they saw them, disappearing from their original spots along with the chains. The old flame demon ghost ignored the few people who had disappeared in a flash. Clearly he was already incomparably clear about this. The old flame demon ghost exhaled. His eyes contained some fear as he turned his head to look at the pitch-black tunnel. He did not say anything. Instead, he gently lifted his feet and walked into the hall. At the same time, in a mountainous area extremely far away from this place, a green-clothed old man with white hair and a beard was looking at the few green mountains in the distance with a relaxed smile. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile as he opened his mouth and sighed. This old man is Yuan Qing. I have finally returned. Chapter 50. A vast mountain range, a thick blood-colored fog and a dark forest. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Following a series of rhythmic footsteps, a figure shrouded in black fog slowly walked forward in a pitch-black hall. The hall was pitch-black and one's field of vision was less than 30 meters. The figure looked straight ahead, completely unaffected by the endless darkness. There were no ripples in his eyes. The seemingly slow footsteps were extremely fast. In just a moment, the figure had already reached the end of the large hall. The old flame demon ghost stopped and raised his eyes to the front. It was still pitch black as always, without a trace of light. Everything here looked so empty. His body leaned forward slightly and he continued to move forward. Soon the old flame demon ghost stopped again and looked around. This was actually another pitch-black tunnel. The pitch-black space made one wonder if it was an illusion or something else. The space here was actually extremely dense. There was even a sense of stickiness. Even when he breathed, he felt as if he was inhaling water into his lungs. The old flame demon ghost took a deep breath of the sticky air and slowly exhaled. Just as he was about to speak, another old voice sounded. Old flame demon ghost? Why are you back? As soon as his voice fell, he let out a soft exclamation and said, That's right. I see that your blood chi is weak and your soul energy is weak. None of the subordinates you brought with you survived. Could it be because of that old fellow, Yuan Qing? The old flame demon ghost snorted coldly when he heard this. He twisted his neck angrily and replied, Humph. It would be great if it was only that fellow Yuan Qing. If that was the case, I could have killed him that day. The person whose location was unknown raised his eyebrows slightly and spoke again. This means that that old fellow Yuan Qing still has helpers? Could it be that they sent someone else? Before he finished speaking, he shook his head and said with a frown, That shouldn't be the case. But that shouldn't be the case. If they had sent someone over, the headquarters would have informed us. But it doesn't seem to be the case. Alright, I won't talk to you for now. I'm going to see the hall master first. Once I'm done, the hall master will inform you. Just as he was about to step into the passageway, he suddenly paused. A black figure wrapped in a black robe appeared in front of the old flame demon ghost. The black-clothed figure let out a cold laugh and said to the old flame demon ghost, Lord Palace Master is not someone you can meet just because you want to. Lord Palace Master has already informed me that he is going into closed-door training. You will not be able to see him for at least a few months. As he spoke, he smiled and glanced at the flame demon old ghost. Moreover, Lord Hall Master went into seclusion 10 days ago. He said that we are not to disturb his seclusion unless something major happens. You should be aware of Lord Hall Master's temper. Humph humph. Do you think that it is possible for you to meet him? The old flame demon ghost's anxious heart relaxed when he heard these words. He was naturally aware of the temper of the hall chief. No one could go against him once he spoke. However, at this moment, as long as he said his last sentence, even if he disturbed Lord Palace Master's seclusion, the hall master would definitely not punish him. Therefore, the old flame demon ghost had a mocking smile on his face as he looked at the black-clothed figure in front of him. He slowly said, Since that is the case, may I request the palace protector to make way for this old man? This old man has an urgent matter to report to Lord Palace Master. The brows of the black-clothed figure under the black robe were tightly knitted together when he heard this. He coldly snorted and said, "I don't believe that there is something major that can cause you to offend Lord Palace Master like this. Are you really not afraid of death?" The last few words of the black-clothed person were especially emphasized, causing one to feel very uncomfortable after hearing them. However, the old flame demon ghost coldly laughed and said, "Die? Humph. I advise you to get out of the way as soon as possible. Otherwise, once the opportunity passes, it is not certain who will be the one to die. You must be careful of this old life of yours. It will be best if your soul is not scattered in the end." The black-clothed person suddenly raised his head when he heard this. Flames of fury rose in his sinister eyes. After letting out a heavy cold snort, the black-clothed person's figure flashed and disappeared in front of the old flame demon ghost. The old flame demon ghost coldly laughed. He lifted his foot and walked into the tunnel. A moment later, the old flame demon ghost finally walked out of the pitch-black tunnel with a somewhat numb expression. The old flame demon ghost appeared in a spacious large hall. The difference between this place and the outside was simply the difference between heaven and earth. It was as if one was the underworld and the other was the immemorial immortal realm. The first thing that entered one's eyes in this place was a layer of hazy white fog that lingered in the large hall like the drifting immortal chi. Together with the pitch-black tunnel behind the old flame demon ghost, it was as if one had arrived in a different world. The walls of the large hall were made of sparkling and translucent white jade that emitted a lustrous white light. With a single glance, one could tell that this jade was definitely not an ordinary item. In the center of the large hall, there were 3 transparent and colorless balls of light suspended in the air. They emitted a lustrous light that illuminated the entire large hall. The balls of light appeared ordinary as if they were only used for illumination. However, from the waves of energy ripples that were faintly emitted from them, one could tell that these balls of light were definitely not ordinary. If Xiaoyan was present, he would be able to recognize with a single glance that these 3 balls of light were surprisingly the spiritual sources that the Hall of Souls had collected in the past. The white hazy fog was emitted from these 3 balls of light. The white hazy fog was actually waves of pure spiritual sources. However, the old flame demon ghost seemed to have already become accustomed to this. However, the greed that was revealed in his dark eyes at this moment still revealed his desire for these spiritual sources. Suddenly, a voice that was filled with fury was transmitted over, causing the entire large hall to tremble slightly. "Flame demon! Don't you know that I am in seclusion? You actually dare to come and disturb me at this moment. Are you seeking death?" The old flame demon ghost immediately recovered after these words were uttered. His face revealed a terrified expression. He calmed himself down and hurriedly opened his mouth to speak. "Reporting to Hall Chief, this subordinate does not dare to disturb your seclusion. However, the matter that this subordinate wishes to report this time around is an extremely important matter to us and cannot be delayed even a little. Therefore, this subordinate has boldly disturbed your seclusion. I hope that great Hall Chief will forgive me." The owner of the voice frowned tightly when he heard this. He took a deep breath. It was a long while later before he let out a cold snort and a dissatisfied roar was emitted. "Speak. If it is not an important matter, this old man will destroy you." The old flame demon ghost instantly felt the surrounding temperature rapidly drop after these words were uttered, becoming incomparably cold. However, he was confident in his heart and was naturally not afraid. The old flame demon ghost's face was filled with confidence as he raised his head and looked to the front. He slowly said, "Great Hall Chief Xiaoyan has arrived." Chapter 51. Please recommend me. Please recommend me. Bang. A wave of wild and violent do-chi ripples surged over. The entire hall was instantly swept by a wave of powerful do-chi storm. The fog scattered in all directions. Everything within the hall was completely revealed. In this manner, it caused the entire hall to appear incomparably empty. The expression of the old flame demon ghost suddenly changed the moment the storm swept over. His feet took a couple of steps back before he managed to dodge it. After the storm scattered, the old flame demon ghost bitterly turned his head around and looked at the interior of the hall. The old flame demon ghost focused his gaze and looked over. A human figure wrapped in a black robe was standing in the middle of the hall. 3 light clusters were suspended in the air a couple of dozen feet above the head of the black-robed human figure. Only at this moment did the old flame demon ghost truly see the structure of the entire hall. The entire main hall was built with warm white jade. Even the utensils in the main hall were ordinary. The entire hall appeared to be white. However, at this moment the entire hall was filled with white light. However, at this moment the old flame demon ghost and the black-robed human figure in the hall appeared out of place in this bright and clean color. There was also the pitch-black chain that bound the three balls of light. The dark black chain was exactly the same as the chain in the hands of the few black-robed people from before. However, it appeared to be one size larger when compared to the latter in terms of size. The end of the chain reached the highest point of the hall. There was a white jade pillar that was shaped like an awl at that spot. The dark black chain was wrapped around it and locked into it. The symbols that were carved on the chain were emitting waves of light at this moment. At the same time that the light was flashing, a cream-white airflow slowly flashed over the chain and extended to the end of the chain. The eyes of the human figure under the black robe focused on the old flame demon ghost. His expression was ice-cold, causing the old flame demon ghost to instantly feel a chill all over his body. The old flame demon ghost hurriedly bowed to the black-robed human figure and spoke in a humble tone. This subordinate, the old flame demon, greets Hall Chief. The black-robed person emitted a cold snort when he heard this. He turned around and slowly walked toward the only chair in the hall. The Xiaoyan that you mentioned earlier, is he the Xiaoyan from the Do-Chi continent? Those words were spoken very calmly. However, anyone could hear the excitement and agitation hidden within those words. It was as if they were good friends who had been separated from each other for many years and had finally found each other again. A glint flashed across the old flame demon ghost's eyes when he heard this. He nodded slightly and said to the black-robed man, replying to the hall master, according to the place where that person appeared and how he addressed himself, it should be correct. Before he finished speaking, he continued to speak. Moreover, this subordinate has also sensed an extremely wild and violent flame strength from his body. This also coincides with the attribute characteristic of Xiaoyan. Thus, this Xiaoyan should be the Xiaoyan we're looking for. When the old flame demon ghost spoke until this point, his eyes rotated slightly. He opened his mouth slightly as though he wanted to say something. However, in the end he did not say anything. That black-robed person was quiet for a moment when he heard this. He exhaled a deep breath of air and raised his head slightly. Suddenly a light flashed. The black-robed person rose into the air and stood in midair. At the same time, a wild, overbearing aura spread throughout the entire hall in an instant. A voice was also slowly emitted at this moment. Everyone, quickly gather in the main hall. This hall chief has an important announcement. When this voice was emitted, the spirits of everyone in the hall were instantly shaken. Even some of those who had been in a retreat for a long time were forcefully woken up at this moment. Their bodies moved and they stood up one after another. They flew in the direction of the main hall that was mentioned. At the same time, at another place, another person was also reporting the same thing to another person. A group of people stood within a luxurious hall. Their faces revealed curious expressions as they looked at a person in the hall. In the middle of the hall, a green-clothed old man with white hair at his temples was leisurely speaking to an old man in luxurious clothes seated on the main seat. Deacon Yunmei, that Xiaoyan is indeed a rare genius. Although he is from a poor background, he was able to cultivate to such strength as an unaffiliated cultivator. He is truly extraordinary. Therefore, you believe that we should bring him under our Cloud Celestial sect and use him to strengthen our Cloud Celestial sect so that we can fight against the Ghost Temple sect together? Before Yuan Qing could finish speaking, the old man called Yun Mei, who was seated on the main seat, spoke to continue Yuan Qing's words. Yuan Qing hurriedly nodded his head in agreement when he heard this. Moreover, as if he wanted the old man to nod his head in agreement, Yuan Qing opened his mouth once again to speak. Moreover, I feel that this Xiaoyan may have some enmity with the Ghost Temple sect. This is because he dealt a heavy blow to the old flame demon ghost. Moreover, Yuan Qing paused when he spoke to this point. Only when Yun Mei could not help but open her mouth to speak did Yuan Qing raise his head slightly. He looked at Yun Mei and continued speaking. Moreover, I feel that the old flame demon ghost and the rest have come to the southwestern region for Xiaoyan. Once these words were spoken, everyone in the hall began to talk to each other. They had been guarding the borders of the continent for so many years because they did not know what the Ghost Temple sect was waiting for. Hence they had always been held back. Yet, Yuan Qing had actually given such a huge answer. They had come to the borders of the continent just to wait for a single person. This answer was simply too weak and powerless. Yun Mei also frowned slightly. She looked at Yuan Qing with a meaningful expression, indicating for him to stop talking about this matter. Yuan Qing also understood when he saw this. His eyes turned slightly as he raised his head to look at Yun Mei. Originally he seemed to want to say something. However, in the end he did not say anything. A long while later, Yuanqing finally forced a smile and said, "Hee hee. This is only my personal guess. There is no basis for it. Everyone, please do not take it to heart. Just treat it as a joke." Hearing this, everyone cast a glance at Yuanqing and ignored him. Under Yun Mei's lead, everyone in the hall once again regained their calm. Yun Mei swept her gaze across the hall, which had calmed down. Her gaze paused on Yuanqing for a moment before she opened her mouth to speak. "Yuanqing, according to what you said earlier, this Xiaoyan is indeed not bad. It is not impossible for our Cloud Immortal sect to use him. However, I wonder if your intention this time is Xiaoyan's wish?" Apart from Yuanqing, everyone else was confused by Yun Mei's words. Logically speaking, Yuanqing should have said this because he had been entrusted by Xiaoyan. Why would she ask if it was Xiaoyan's wish? Indeed, this was somewhat incomprehensible. Chapter 52. Please recommend me. Please recommend me. Within the large hall, everyone looked at Yun Mei, who was seated in the main seat, with some doubt. They looked at each other and saw the same expression in the eyes of the others. Yuanqing was also slightly taken aback by Yun Mei's words, but he quickly regained his senses. After thinking for a moment in his heart, Yuanqing finally opened his mouth to speak the truth. Replying, "Deacon Yun Mei, these words of mine are my own thoughts and not something that Xiaoyan asked me to do." What? Everyone present was in an uproar when Yuanqing's words were uttered. All of this was actually Yuanqing's own thoughts. Yuanqing had actually spent so much effort to put in a good word for a person he had only met once and wanted to recruit him into the Cloud Celestial sect. This was really hard to understand. At this time, some people could not help but think, could it be that Xiaoyan had done something to Yuanqing? Otherwise, given Yuanqing's character, why would he be so considerate of others for no reason? Yun Mei nodded slightly when she heard this. After which she quickly asked Yuanqing. "Since this is the case, I think that there must be a reason behind it, right? Otherwise, why would a dignified elder of the Cloud Celestial sect in the middle region put in so much effort just because of one person's talent?" Yuanqing smiled awkwardly when he heard this. After which, he opened his mouth and said to Yun Mei, "Deacon Yun Mei is indeed impressive. Come to think of it, I only want to repay Xiaoyan for saving my life. I feel that if I recruit him into my Cloud Celestial sect, not only will I be able to repay the debt, but my Cloud Celestial sect will also have another genius. That is why I did this." "Saving your life? Didn't he chase away the old flame demon ghost?" Yun Mei frowned slightly when she heard this and asked somewhat uncertainly. Yuanqing nodded slightly and continued to speak to Yun Mei. "That's right. Although the old flame demon ghost was chased away by Xiaoyan, the final attack of the old flame demon ghost injured my physical body. Deacon Yun Mei should also know that people like us, whose strength has yet to reach the Do D class, will definitely die if our physical bodies are damaged if we do not have a fresh physical body or some method to refine a physical body. Back then there was only me, the old Balrog ghost, Xiaoyan and I at that location. Naturally, there would not be any other living human bodies." As soon as these words were spoken, there was no need for Yuanqing to explain any further. Everyone was already well aware of the situation. Without a physical body, only some secret techniques that could refine a physical body could save him. Not just anyone could possess such a secret technique. Even in the Yunxian sect, only the upper echelons of the sect possessed such a secret technique. Everyone's eyes brightened when they thought of this. Even Yun Mei, who was seated on the main seat, had a faint glow in her eyes. Xiaoyan had not only saved Yuanqing but also possessed a method to refine a physical body. This caused everyone's opinion of Xiaoyan to involuntarily change. Xiaoyan's talent had already caused everyone to exclaim in admiration. Adding the ability that he possessed, this Xiaoyan already possessed the conditions for them to take the initiative to rope him in. Just Xiaoyan's method to refine a physical body was sufficient to defeat most of the people in the hall. After all, even if Yun Mei were to be included, not a single person present had reached the Do D class. In this way, Xiaoyan's secret technique was a great guarantee for the lives of everyone present. Yun Mei frowned slightly as she looked at the chaotic crowd below. An impatient expression was revealed on her old face. She gently lifted her left hand and waved it in front of her. An invisible pressure spread out from Yun Mei's body. The somewhat noisy and lively atmosphere in the hall instantly became quiet. Yun Mei frowned and swept her gaze over everyone present. Finally, she let out a cold snort and looked at Yuanqing. Yun Mei looked at Yuanqing and nodded. Her eyes revealed a look of admiration. She smiled slightly and opened her mouth to speak in a candid manner. "It is very good that you are so grateful. My Cloud Celestial sect needs people like you." Only such an upright person can allow my Cloud Celestial sect to grow stronger. Ahahaha. Before anyone could react, Yun Mei's expression turned serious. She quickly opened her mouth to ask Yuan Qing. However, since all of this is decided by you alone, I think that Xiao Yan may not agree to join my Cloud Celestial sect, right? Everyone's expression was slightly stunned when they heard this. Immediately, they looked at Yuan Qing with some worry in their hearts. Yuan Qing was also stunned by Yun Mei's words. This was something that he had never expected. Indeed, this was only his own idea. He had thought this way because he wanted to rope in Xiao Yan. Moreover, it was not the kind of roping that everyone present had in mind. Through Xiao Yan's various actions and Xiao Yan's final confirmation, Yuan Qing had already decided. This Xiao Yan must be a disciple of a hidden great faction. Moreover, his identity was definitely not ordinary. This could be seen from how the old flame demon ghost had involuntarily cried out when he heard his name. The old flame demon ghost knew about Xiao Yan. It was very likely that his goal was to capture Xiao Yan and use him to threaten the faction behind him. Xiao Yan had asked Yuan Qing to reveal his identity as an independent cultivator. Yuan Qing had agreed to Xiao Yan's request without hesitation. In Yuan Qing's opinion, Xiao Yan's actions were entirely to prevent his identity from being exposed and bring disaster to himself. Therefore, Yuan Qing wanted to make use of this point to let Xiao Yan join the Yunxian sect. On one hand, he could conceal his identity. On the other hand, he could secretly pull in a powerful faction for the Yunxian sect. This would be a great contribution to the Yunxian sect. If he could recruit Xiao Yan into the Yunxian sect, as long as he could establish a good relationship with him, the overall strength of the Yunxian sect would be greatly improved in a short period of time. Unfortunately, if Yuan Qing knew about Xiao Yan's true background, he would not think this way. Yuan Qing frowned and thought for a long time. Finally, he took a deep breath. His eyes suddenly became determined as he said, Deacon Yun Mei, I will definitely persuade Xiao Yan to join the Yunxian sect and help our sect recruit a genius. Yun Mei raised her eyebrows slightly when she heard this. She looked at Yuan Qing's determined expression and lowered her eyelids slightly. Her eyes moved, but she did not say anything. He then raised his head to look at Yuan Qing and nodded with a smile before saying, It's fine. It's good that you have such intentions. Since it's for the sake of our Cloud Immortal sect, I wish you success in recruiting him to our Cloud Immortal sect. Before she finished speaking, Yun Mei's expression turned serious and she immediately opened her mouth to speak. Remember, regardless of whether he agrees to join the Celestial Cloud sect or not, you must maintain a good relationship with him. Since he is a genius, do not provoke him easily. At the very least, you must maintain a good relationship with him. Do not make enemies for the Celestial Cloud sect. Otherwise, you will have to deal with him yourself. Yuan Qing hurriedly nodded in response. However, Yun Mei's eyes lit up as she looked at Yuan Qing. She smiled and said, Don't worry. Your luck is pretty good. It's a blessing in disguise. I see that the dou qi in your body has reached a bottleneck. I presume you're about to break through? Without waiting for Yuan Qing to speak, Yun Mei continued. In that case, I have a pill here. Take it. As soon as Yuan Qing finished speaking, Yun Mei waved her sleeve and a ray of light shot out and was caught by Yuan Qing. After Yuan Qing expressed his gratitude, he dismissed everyone in the hall. Yun Mei sat alone on the main seat. She raised her head to look at the sky outside the hall and muttered to herself, Could it be as Yuan Qing said? That the person they are looking for this time is Xiao Yan? However, why is it so different from before? What on earth are these people who are neither human nor ghost doing? Chapter 53. Humph. A bunch of stubborn, despicable old men. How dare they delay my return by a month? How infuriating. Humph. If I don't wait for a year or so before I return, I will write my name backwards. On the street, a sloppy old man in ordinary clothes was walking on his own. He did not care about the disgusted looks on the passers-by's faces. As he walked, he cursed under his breath, causing a few passers-by to feel annoyed. Even if he was not cursing the passers-by on the street, it would be easy to cause a misunderstanding. If it was not for the fact that someone saw the jade pendant hanging on his waist, it would have caused a commotion. There were a few people who didn't notice the jade token, but they noticed the jade token after being reminded by others. Immediately their expressions changed drastically. After thanking the person who reminded them, they quickly left the place resentfully. This was because they saw the identity of the most powerful force in the area on the jade pendant. There was only one word on it, Xiao. The overlord of the area was the Xiao clan. In Xiao City, no one dared to offend the people from the Xiao clan. The old man seemed to have realized that something was wrong with him. He frowned slightly and lowered his sleeves to cover the jade pendant. Then he lifted it up again. However, unlike before, the jade pendant that represented the entire Shao clan had disappeared. On the other hand, the old man revealed a smile and left the city in a leisurely manner. Shao City. Swoosh. Along with the sound of wind breaking, a man in white appeared on the peak of a mountain. The wind and waves attacked, causing Xiaoyan's robes to flutter and his hair to dance wildly. Xiaoyan took a deep breath of the cool air and felt the wind around him. His lips curled into a smile. With a move, he disappeared from the peak of the mountain with a gust of wind. In the next instant, a gust of wind swept across the forest in the distance. The trees within a radius of a few hundred feet swayed and rustled. Xiaoyan's figure appeared at the top of a tree. Hearing the rustling sound beside his ear, Xiaoyan swept his gaze over the leaves that filled the sky. His body once again flashed and disappeared. Xiaoyan's figure kept flashing and disappearing. In the clear and spacious area, the wind was howling. The sound of the wind was continuous and it swept across the area. Umph. Suddenly Xiaoyan let out a roar. He stood in the air and opened his arms. A suction force appeared in his hands. A strong gust of wind blew between the heavens and the earth, sweeping away the clouds. Dark clouds surged and the sky instantly turned dark. Xiaoyan moved his feet and took a mysterious step. The suction force in his hands increased. With a move, he disappeared from the spot with a gust of wind. The gust of wind seemed to have received an order and it swept across the area. The wind stirred and the sound of the wind and cranes shrieked between heaven and earth. It was like a mad dragon roaring, and its might shook the heavens. The invisible gust of wind swept up the leaves in the forest and formed a long green dragon that swam across the sky. The long dragon lingered in the sky. Its head was raised high. Although it was formed by wind and clouds, it still gave off a domineering feeling. However, a white-clothed figure suddenly appeared on the dragon's head when the long dragon lingered in the sky and raised its head. His hands were behind his back and there was a faint smile on his face. Xiaoyan waved his sleeves. The huge fellow under his feet, which was like a real dragon, suddenly turned into fallen leaves that filled the sky and drifted down with this wave. At this moment, an aged voice that was accompanied by a slight smile suddenly sounded out, and it said, "That's right. Ah, not bad. You actually borrowed the power of the wind and combined it with your footwork. You have successfully executed the wind step of the sky extinction steps on your first try. You can be considered to have practiced it quite well." Xiaoyan rejoiced and smiled upon hearing Guyu's words. He thanked Guyu. He thanked Guyu and said, "This is all thanks to old Gu's guidance. He allowed me to use the thunderbolt power of the 3000 lightning movement and the wind power of the sky extinction steps to cultivate the wind step of the sky extinction steps. That is why my cultivation speed is so fast." Guyu laughed when he heard this and continued, "Using the sky extinction steps to cultivate the sky extinction steps. Using the requirements of the second level, the Lingyun Great Realm, to cultivate the first level. Such a method is naturally incomparably fast. You think that you are cultivating the first level, but if I were to go into detail, you are actually cultivating the second level, the Lingyun Great Realm. Think about it. You have already cultivated the Lingyun Great Realm. In that case, wouldn't the wind extinction step be a piece of cake?" Xiaoyan also nodded his head in admiration. He then opened his mouth and said, "If I persist in using this method to cultivate the sky extinction steps, I believe that I will be able to achieve initial success in the first step, the wind extinction step, in less than 2 months." After saying that, he stopped cultivating and casually found a place to rest. Guyu also smiled in admiration but did not say anything. The path of cultivation was about progressing step by step. Blindly cultivating would only cause one to be overly eager for quick success and ultimately fail on the verge of success. When things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. This was the principle. Xiaoyan sat on the peak of a mountain. The flame art cultivation method in his body was slowly circulating as he absorbed the natural energy between heaven and earth. Suddenly, Xiaoyan seemed to have thought of something and withdrew from his cultivation state. With a flip of his hand, a jade bottle appeared in Xiaoyan's hand. At the same time, Xiaoyan shouted in his heart, "Old Gu, I have something to ask you. Elder Gu, I have something to ask of you. Please come out and meet me." His voice had just sounded when a beam of light shot out from the fire seal between Xiaoyan's eyebrows. It continuously transformed in front of Xiaoyan and finally turned into the appearance of an old man. Was Guyu? Guyu raised his eyebrows when he saw Xiaoyan's anxious expression. He did not ask any further and sat down on the ground, waiting for Xiaoyan to speak. Xiaoyan saw Guyu sit on the ground and extended his hands. He placed a jade bottle in front of Guyu. Guyu frowned when he saw this. He glanced at Xiaoyan. When he saw Xiaoyan nod his head, Guyu frowned and received the jade bottle in his hand. Guyu looked at the jade bottle in his palm but did not see anything special about it. He did not think too much about it. Xiaoyan's objective should be in this jade bottle. Guyu slowly opened the jade bottle in front of Xiaoyan's somewhat surprised gaze. A thumb-sized milky white ball of light slowly floated out of the jade bottle. Guyu raised his eyebrows when he saw this. A surprised expression appeared on his face. Guyu extended his hand and light appeared in his hand, wrapping around the ball of light. After which, he looked at Xiaoyan and slowly opened his mouth. Who is this person? He is actually still alive. Chapter 54. At this moment, Guyu's face was filled with shock. His pupils shrunk and his mouth was half open. He looked at the milky white light cluster floating above his palm and was unable to recover for a long time. Xiaoyan was also dumbfounded. Guyu was an elder. A senior was indeed a senior. Although this wisp of soul fragment was extremely weak, Guyu was still able to guess what was going on. Based on this alone, Xiaoyan believed that he might be able to find the method he had been searching for a long time from Guyu. A moment later, Guyu slowly withdrew the light cluster in his palm and placed it back into the jade bottle. Then he handed it back to Xiaoyan. Guyu stood up and turned his body sideways. He frowned and sighed deeply. After which, he turned his head to look at Xiaoyan. Guyu slowly opened his mouth and looked at Xiaoyan. If I have not guessed wrongly, you want me to help you repair his soul, right? Xiaoyan was not surprised when he heard this. Since Guyu had already seen this wisp of remnant spirit, he should be able to guess what Xiaoyan's purpose was. Hence Xiaoyan slowly nodded. His expression was a little surprised as he admitted to this point. Guyu nodded when he saw this. After which, he lifted his head to look at the sky. This caused Xiaoyan's heart to tighten slightly. He became a little worried. A long while later, Guyu finally opened his mouth and asked Xiaoyan, "What does this person have to do with you?" Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He felt a little surprised in his heart. He pondered for a moment in his heart before he opened his mouth to speak. He is my ancestor. In order to help me break through to the D state, he ignited his spiritual strength. In the end he allowed me to raise my strength. Hence, before Xiaoyan could finish speaking, Guyu interrupted Xiaoyan. Hence you want to save him to repay him for his help. Am I right? Xiaoyan lowered his eyelids and nodded when he heard this. He did not speak. Guyu frowned and didn't say anything for a long time. A long while later he shook his head and rolled his eyes at Xiaoyan. His expression was somewhat reproachful as he slowly opened his mouth and said, "What a worrisome little fellow. Once you call this old man out, you ask such a difficult question. You really don't know how to respect your elders." Xiaoyan suddenly stood up. A joyous expression was revealed on his face. He did not refute Guyu's teasing. However, his eyes were red as he stared at Guyu. He was panting heavily as if he was an old bachelor who had suddenly seen a beautiful woman. Guyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It took a while before Xiaoyan slowly regained his composure. However, one could still see the excitement in his heart. Guyu watched as Xiaoyan slowly regained his composure and smiled helplessly. He stretched out his hand and gestured for Xiaoyan to calm down first. Then he sighed and slowly said, "That's right. This ancestor of yours does indeed still have a trace of life aura left in him." Guyu paused when he spoke. However, Xiaoyan's eyes brightened. This was something that he had not detected. Xiaoyan had never detected even the slightest trace of life aura before. Before Xiaoyan could speak, Guyu inhaled a deep breath and quickly said, "It's too early for you to celebrate. Don't be happy too early. It's still unknown whether or not your ancestor will be able to be resurrected. This is because his wisp of soul remnant is too weak. It is also because of this that there are no natural treasures that can nourish his soul. Therefore you should not have too much hope. The only method that I can provide you is to use your own ability to protect him as much as possible." Xiaoyan's expression, which was originally filled with hope, appeared a little downcast at this moment. Xiaoxian was far too important to him and the entire Xiao clan. If it were not for Xiaoxian, Xiaoyan might not have been able to become an emperor. If it were not for Xiaoxian, the Xiao clan would have likely ceased to exist and would not have been able to prosper. Although Xiaoxian was a figure from 1,000 years ago, he had still fought for too much for the Xiao clan even after 1,000 years. However, Xiaoyan had bitterly searched for a revival method for 10 years. The hope in Xiaoyan's heart had been completely shattered by Guyu's words. Guyu frowned when he saw the downcast expression on Xiaoyan's face. He lowered his head and began to ponder. Time slowly flowed by in this silent atmosphere. Following the silence of the Xiaoyan duo, The area within 1,000 feet of Xiaoyan had become deathly silent. Everything appeared incomparably quiet. Even some magical beasts were quietly crawling on the ground. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. Their hearts were filled with fear. Finally, the sky gradually darkened. It was already evening. A day had quietly passed. Guyu, who had been quietly standing on the mountain peak, finally moved at this moment. His body trembled slightly. He slowly lifted his lowered head and looked at Xiaoyan, who still had a downcast expression. In the next moment, this silence, which had lasted for an entire day, was finally broken by Guyu. Guyu's eyes brightened. He looked at Xiaoyan's listless appearance and clapped his hands heavily. An expression of understanding appeared on his elderly face. This action of Guyu also woke up Xiaoyan, who had been in a downcast mood for the entire day. He looked at Guyu with a listless face. Only when Xiaoyan saw the expression on Guyu's face did his expression change. He was suddenly startled. Both of his eyes quickly reddened. His face was filled with wild joy and surprise. His seated body stood up from the ground. For some unknown reason, Xiaoyan's legs felt numb when he stood up, even though he had the physical body of a half-emperor. His body staggered for a moment before he managed to stabilize himself. Xiaoyan's body shook. The numbness in his legs disappeared. After which, his eyes were filled with anticipation as he looked at Guyu. It was a long while later before Xiaoyan swallowed a mouthful of saliva with great difficulty. This caused his dry throat to recover a little. His lips trembled as he asked Guyu one word at a time. Old Gu, have you thought of my ancestors' resurrection method? Guyu gently nodded upon hearing this and acknowledged the request. Then Guyu spoke again. This wisp of your ancestor's soul is simply too weak. The slightest carelessness could cause it to completely dissipate. I have thought of many methods in the past. I have considered hundreds of natural treasures that can help one's soul origin. Unfortunately, none of them are feasible. Although Guyu's methods had all failed, Xiaoyan calmed down. He was not anxious at all. Since Guyu had spoken, why would he lie to him? As expected, Guyu looked at Xiaoyan's calm expression and nodded. He continued to speak. He continued, until just now, I thought of a method. Moreover, if this method doesn't work, there will be no hope of resurrecting your ancestor. This method is to use something as weak as your ancestor's soul fragment to nourish, merge, and recover. As for this sort of thing, it is the pure soul origin energy. Chapter 55. Soul origin? Xiaoyan's face was uncertain as he looked at Guyu and asked in disbelief. That's right. It is soul origin. Moreover, it must be pure enough. Otherwise, if the soul origin is not pure enough and conflicts with your ancestor's remnant spirit when it merges, I believe you know what the final outcome will be. Xiaoyan frowned when he heard Guyu's words. The essence of one's soul was the foundation of a person. Extracting the essence of another person's soul was equivalent to Xiaoyan killing someone. However, such an action was not something that Xiaoyan could do. Although Xiaoyan did not dare to call himself a good person, he would not kill someone for no reason. This was not Xiaoyan's way of doing things. Even if all of this was to revive his ancestor, Xiaoyan would not do such a thing. However, if he did not do so, Xiaoyan would not be able to be revived. This made Xiaoyan hesitate. Moreover, there was another crucial point. Soul origin was a person's foundation. It was the foundation of life. How was it possible to completely purify it? Xiaoyan could not help but frown when he thought about these major problems. Guyu seemed to have seen through Xiaoyan's thoughts when he saw this. He laughed out loud and said, You don't have to do such a thing. Why don't you just kill those who want to kill you? This way it will be in line with your heart and you will be able to get rid of your enemies. Isn't that great? As for what you are thinking about not being able to completely purify soul origin, that's just unnecessary worry. It's only been 10 years. Have you already forgotten your identity? Flame Emperor. You are really a Flame Emperor. I can't believe you have forgotten your identity. A heavenly flame is a divine object that can incinerate all living things. What does that little bit of spiritual origin source count for? Moreover, you also possess the fallen heart flame, which has the greatest destructive power towards spiritual strength, and the purifying demonic lotus flame, which has the greatest purifying power. If you want to obtain a pure spiritual origin source, it is still a matter of your strength. Xiaoyan finally reacted after Guyu's words left his mouth. Who said that there was no spiritual essence? Xiaoyan's great enemy, the Hun clan, had so many people. All of them were the spiritual essence that Xiaoyan was searching for. Xiaoyan smiled comfortably when he thought of this in his heart. After which, he calmed his heart. After exchanging a few words with Guyu, Zhou Yuan entered a state of cultivation. Seeing Xiao Yan enter a state of cultivation, Guyu stood to the side, stared at the jade bottle in Xiao Yan's arms, frowning, muttering to himself. Speaking of which, how did Xiao Yan's ancestors survive in the Genesis Chi? Moreover, he's using the Universe Genesis Chi to recover. Why is that? It was a long while later before Guyu seemed to have recalled something. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the jade bottle in Xiao Yan's arms. His mouth muttered to himself. He muttered to himself, Could it be that the cultivation method that Xiao Yan's ancestor practiced, is that cultivation method has long disappeared from the continent? I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. Time flashed by. In the blink of an eye, it was already late at night. Xiao Yan, who was in the midst of training, suddenly opened his originally shut eyes. Xiao Yan waved his sleeve and a stream of black light shot out. The black light began to transform a short distance in front of Xiao Yan. Finally, it transformed into a completely black human figure. If one were to carefully observe it, the seemingly black skin was actually an empty space. Ah, Xiao Yan, the time has come. Isn't it time for you to fulfill your promise to me? Hearing this, Xiao Yan frowned slightly and opened his mouth to ask, Hey Yan, do you really want to become emperor that badly? He Yan let out a cold laugh when he heard this. Enough. It's not up to you to judge what I want. You just need to keep your promise. Xiao Yan also sighed when he heard this. He helplessly nodded his head and said faintly. He said indifferently, Since that's the case, are you ready? I've been waiting for this day for 1,000 years. I've long been ready. Why do I need to make unnecessary preparations? Xiao Yan nodded. Since that's the case, I'll help you. Before his voice faded, Xiao Yan's figure flashed and appeared high in the sky. Xiao Yan sat cross-legged in the air and shouted to He Yan below. Hey Yan, I see that your body is overflowing with battle chi. You only need to use Genesis Chi to complete the last step of your breakthrough. I will do my best to absorb the energy between heaven and earth, while you only need to absorb Genesis Chi. As long as there is enough Genesis Chi, I believe that you will be able to break through to Emperor in less than 10 days. He Yan's eyes brightened slightly. Just as he was about to speak, another voice sounded. Xiao Yan, I suggest that you give him your jade bottle before you help him. If it's not bad, it should be of great use. Xiao Yan's eyebrows twitched when these words were uttered. Although he did not understand, he still gently nodded his head. He Yan's expression turned to one of shock. His entire body abruptly shook as he involuntarily took a few steps back. He looked to the side and saw an old man looking at him with a smile on his face. He Yan's expression changed. His figure moved and arrived in front of Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan smiled faintly. This is old Gu. You don't have to worry, he won't touch you. He Yan carefully looked at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan extended his hand, and a jade bottle was placed in Xiao Yan's arms. At the same time he said, This is related to my ancestor. This is related to my ancestor. Be careful, don't break it. Otherwise you've also felt how terrifying Elder Gu is. Xiao Yan did not say anything else. His body straightened as he entered a state of crazy cultivation. He Yan once again glanced at Guyu below. He completely ignored Xiao Yan's earlier words. His eyes rotated rapidly and he found a place with dense Genesis Chi. After which, he threw himself into training. Guyu smiled faintly as he looked at the jade bottle in He Yan's arms. As soon as the two of them entered a state of cultivation, the sky suddenly became stormy and turbulent. Thunderclouds churned in the sky as lightning and thunder rumbled. The originally dusky world became as bright as day. At times it was night, but at other times it was day. The cycle of day and night continued for several hours, while He Yan's breakthrough was still in the process of slowly progressing. 10 days later, Xiao Yan beckoned with his hand, and a suction force was emitted from his hand. A jade bottle rose into the air and was kept in Xiao Yan's storage ring. At this moment, Guyu's eyes finally regained some clarity. In the sky. Roar. He Yan let out a furious roar. On the surface of his body, black flames rose up, and flames burst out from his eyes. The space around He Yan continuously shattered as he devoured the spatial power. The entire world was gradually absorbed into his body, becoming a part of him. Boom. A bolt of black lightning suddenly filled the sky and slammed into He Yan's body with a loud bang. After a loud boom, there was no one else apart from Xiao Yan and Guyu. Xiao Yan frowned slightly. Before he could do anything, another bolt of black lightning struck down from the sky. Boom. He Yan looked at the black lightning and let out a furious roar. His hand seals changed rapidly and numerous complicated seals were shot out one after another. Guyu's expression changed when he saw the seals, but he did not say anything in the end. Guyu's hand moved gently under his sleeve, and a ray of light shot out. It flickered a short distance in front of Xiaoyan before disappearing. In Xiaoyan's eyes, everything in the sky was normal. He Yan would be able to make a breakthrough as long as he could endure a little longer. However, He Yan's aura was weak in Guyu's eyes, and the flames all over his body were dim. At this moment, a blue barrier appeared in the sky above the 9 heavens. The barrier continued to change. Finally, a huge palm was slowly formed. The huge palm slammed down on He Yan. He Yan would definitely die if he was hit. At this moment, a black light flashed and everything in the sky returned to normal. It was as though nothing had happened. However, He Yan was nowhere to be found. At the same time, in a secret room thousands of miles away, the originally narrowed eyes of a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes were slowly opened at this moment. He looked in a certain direction. That direction was the direction where Xiaoyan was located. At the same time, in another place, a pair of eyes filled with blood was also looking over there. Although the two of them were not together at this moment, they spoke at the same time and doubtfully asked, "What's the matter? Who is it? Who dares to touch the sky boundary?" Chapter 56. Xiaoyan and Guyu stood quietly on a mountain peak. They looked up at the sky as if they were looking at something. Suddenly, Xiaoyan squinted his eyes and tilted his head to the right. At the same time, he spread his hands in front of his eyes. A few minutes later, Xiaoyan turned his head around. He opened his eyes and looked at the sky. However, he frowned and let out a soft sound of surprise. His eyes swept around, but in the end he still couldn't find anything. Xiaoyan frowned even more. He then looked at Guyu beside him and asked, "Elder Gu, did you see anything? Elder Gu, when that white light flashed by earlier, did you see any traces of He Yan?" That's right, in Xiaoyan's sight, there was indeed a white light flashing past. It was this white light that had caused Xiaoyan to turn his head around. He did not see what had happened after that. At least that was what Xiaoyan had seen. When Guyu heard this, he moved his finger under his sleeve. A light flashed across the sky and disappeared into the void. As it was daytime, even Xiaoyan did not notice it. Guyu's expression did not change. He looked at Xiaoyan and then at the horizon. He frowned slightly. After a while, he looked at Xiaoyan and shook his head helplessly. Xiaoyan's expression immediately became somewhat worried when he saw this. He muttered softly in his mouth, "How could this be? Even you, Elder Bone, did not notice it?" Guyu's expression changed slightly when he heard this. However, he still replied helplessly, "There is no way. There's nothing I can do about it. If my guess is correct, what He Yan encountered earlier should be a spatial storm. In addition to the void divine lightning, I was unable to discover it." "Void divine lightning? Are you talking about the black heavenly lightning?" Guyu nodded and continued, "The void divine lightning is in the void. It is equivalent to a sublimated version of the black demon lightning. Like the dragon clan, it is not bound by space and has the power to destroy the world. The void divine lightning, together with the shattered void where He Yan fought with it, and the spatial storm, could engulf He Yan without me noticing. However, don't worry. I believe that that fellow will be fine. Perhaps he might even obtain some unexpected benefits because of this." Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows when he heard this. After hearing what Guyu said, Xiaoyan was no longer worried about He Yan's safety. However, Xiaoyan did not understand the benefits. When Guyu saw this, he smiled and left Xiaoyan with a mysterious question mark. In a flash, he entered Xiaoyan's body. "Elder Gu, don't sleep." Xiaoyan's expression became anxious when he saw this. He hurriedly opened his mouth and said, What's wrong? You little brat, do you have any other strange questions? Can't you finish your question in one go? I can't take so many strange questions." Xiaoyan smiled awkwardly when he heard this. He scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. "Elder Gu, I really don't have any questions this time. However, can you give me the remnant flame art in your hands?" "Why didn't you say so earlier? Otherwise I would have given it to you." Xiaoyan felt helpless. This old man had clearly said that Xiaoyan was too weak and had not stabilized his body. Hence he did not give it to him. However, now that he mentioned it, he was blaming Xiaoyan. Guyu casually said. Xiaoyan felt a buzzing sound in his head. His eyes became a little chaotic. Xiaoyan quickly bit the tip of his tongue. The pain instantly spread throughout his body. Xiaoyan quivered and woke up. Xiaoyan's mind shook. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead, and his eyes were filled with horror. The previous attack had truly frightened Xiaoyan. No wonder Guyu said that his foundation was not stable and that he should stabilize his body first. Based on the amount of information that Guyu had transmitted, if Xiao Yan's strength had not broken through to the peak of a 2-star half-martial emperor, it was likely that Guyu's attack earlier would have been enough to shatter his consciousness. At that time, before Xiao Yan could encounter any danger, he would have been killed by Guyu. Xiao Yan sat cross-legged on the ground. His soul power gathered above his head. At this moment, a scarlet fire lotus was in Xiao Yan's mind. It was emitting waves of blazing heat, roasting Xiao Yan's soul power. Xiao Yan's soul power had also surrounded the fire lotus, wrapping it in a soul barrier. He was doing his best to approach the fire lotus, trying to merge it with his body. Chi sound was heard in Xiao Yan's mind. The soul power surrounding the fire lotus had also scattered a little. This caused Xiao Yan's face to turn red in the span of a couple of breaths. His expression was tense and the veins on his forehead bulged. Waves of painful roars were emitted from his throat. Xiao Yan clenched his teeth tightly. His face was distorted and his fists were tightly clenched. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans continued to drip from his forehead. His clothes were completely drenched in sweat. Ugh, I really don't know what to say about you. You ended up like this just to refine a broken chi technique. I am truly helpless against you. Mobilize the heavenly flame in your body. Use the heavenly flame to refine it. I believe that you will finish refining it soon. Hearing this, Xiao Yan did his best to suppress the fire lotus above his head. At the same time, he mobilized the heavenly flame in his body and gathered it above his head. The fire lotus above Xiao Yan's head seemed to have felt the arrival of danger. The scarlet fire lotus continued to spin. Waves of scorching heat waves spread out and collided with the soul barrier. Waves of chi sounds were heard, causing Xiao Yan's entire body to tremble. Forcefully enduring the waves of intense pain that came from his soul, Xiao Yan mobilized all the heavenly flame in his body and gathered it above his head, wrapping the fire lotus within it. The fire lotus that was enveloped by the heavenly flame had clearly become a lot more well-behaved. However, it was still constantly resisting Xiao Yan's control. The peace of the fire lotus also gave Xiao Yan a chance to breathe. Taking a deep breath of the scorching hot air around him, Xiao Yan's mind moved, and the heavenly flame above his head also began to change. Under the control of Xiao Yan's mind, the gorgeous heavenly flame continued to change. It separated, then condensed again, condensed and gradually faded away. The fire lotus also continued to struggle, wanting to escape from this cage. However, the obstruction and burning of the heavenly flame firmly trapped it within, unable to advance or retreat. The change in the situation also caused Xiao Yan to gradually calm down. He wholeheartedly controlled the heavenly flame and approached the trembling fire lotus. The heavenly flame gradually approached the fire lotus, but its temperature was also restrained until it completely enveloped the fire lotus within the heavenly flame. The fire lotus also gradually calmed down during this gentle process, enjoying the closeness of the heavenly flame. Chapter 57. The heavenly flame slowly approached and emitted a warm heat. After nearly 2 hours, the heavenly flame wrapped around the lotus. The fire lotus was finally completely wrapped by the heavenly flame. In fact, the heavenly flame had even merged with it, turning it into a colorful lotus. Under the observation of Xiao Yan's spiritual strength, the fire lotus had become a part of his heavenly flame. The violent fire lotus from before had already disappeared. All that was left was a piece of art that was agglomerated from the heavenly flame, causing one to feel a sense of beauty. The corners of Xiao Yan's mouth curled into a comfortable smile. With a thought, the fire lotus that had merged with the heavenly flame trembled slightly. With a bang, it exploded into countless tiny flaming light spots. The heavenly flame spread out and formed 3 large nets. These nets separated the light spots into 3 parts and refined them separately. Guyu did not say anything. He quietly observed Xiao Yan's every action. The seals in Xiao Yan's hands changed. One of the 3 nets turned into a raging flame. It carried the might of burning the sky and boiling the sea as it began to refine it. Although the fire lotus had been scattered, a portion of its original strength was still present. Hence, it continued to struggle within the heavenly flame. This caused the fire lotus fragments in the other 2 nets to begin to struggle. This caused Xiao Yan quite a bit of trouble. Xiao Yan frowned when he saw this. The seals in his hands changed again. The heavenly flame, which was already powerful, swelled once again and completely wrapped the fire lotus fragments within it. The other 2 parts also began to be refined. They did not even have the chance to struggle. Xiao Yan's spiritual strength poured into the nets and completely suppressed the fire lotus fragments within the 3 clusters of heavenly flame. Although there were still some vibrations, they could no longer cause any major commotion. Xiao Yan's refinement was still in progress. He was only waiting for the final refinement to be completed. At this moment, a group of uninvited guests had arrived in Qingyang City. At this moment, 8 figures were standing in the sky above Qingyang City in a black fog. The appearance of the 8 figures immediately alarmed everyone in the Qingyang City. The head of the Lu family, Lu Huabai, and the first elder, Lu Xinqing, also walked out of the clan's great meeting hall. They raised their heads towards the sky and looked at the 8 figures in the distance. Lu Huabai frowned slightly. He was about to step forward when he was stopped by the first elder. Lu Xinqing lightly shook his head and whispered to Lu Huabai, "Patriarch, these people's identities are unknown. Just by looking at their attire, they are definitely not good people. It's better not to go." At this point, Lu Xinqing's tone paused slightly, then he lowered his voice and continued. "Moreover, these fellows might be here to look for Senior Xiao Yan. Therefore it's better not to alarm them." Hearing that, Lu Huabai's pupils slightly shrank. He raised his head again and looked at the 8 figures in the sky. He nodded his head and retreated. Just as he was about to take a step back, his expression changed. He turned his head and was about to look behind him when he was stopped by a voice. "Don't move. Don't move at all. Otherwise, once those fellows make a move, it won't be a joke." After those words were spoken, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing both trembled. The expressions on their faces were immediately replaced by shock. Because, from the voice, they could tell that the owner of the voice was right behind them. Perhaps as long as they moved slightly, they would touch him. But they had never sensed him at such a close distance before. This made the two of them a bit nervous. That person seemed to have sensed this as well. He lightly snorted and said in a low voice, "You've been with me every day and you don't seem to be afraid of me. But now that I've appeared, you're scared to this extent. I really don't know how you live." Hearing that, the two of them frowned. Immediately after, they seemed to have thought of something. They looked at each other and Lu Huabai asked in a low voice, "Senior, do you know these people?" That person lightly sighed. He frowned as he looked at the 8 black figures in the sky and said in a low voice, "Right now, I don't know them. However, if we talk about the future, I think I'll know them. These people are indeed very troublesome. He and I still don't completely understand the reason for this matter. So, for the time being, we can only avoid them. However, it's only a matter of time before we meet them." Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing nodded in confusion. They didn't continue to ask and continued to watch. In the sky, a figure shrouded in black fog was bowing and reporting something to the person at the front of the group. "Third Palace Master, there is indeed Xiao Yan's aura here. However, due to Xiao Yan intentionally erasing it, it's already very difficult to determine his exact location. I can only conclude that Xiao Yan has already left this Azure Sun City." Hearing that, the person who was called the Third Palace Master coldly snorted. His hoarse voice slowly spat out a sentence. Trash. Since there isn't any, you actually stayed here to investigate for so long. If you let that Xiao Yan escape, I will definitely kill you." The person who spoke just now was the old flame demon ghost. At this moment, the old flame demon ghost's face was filled with respect. He did not dare to relax in the slightest. However, from his respectful eyes, one could faintly see the deeply buried hatred. The Third Palace Master swept his gaze over the Azure Sun City below. He frowned slightly but still did not do anything. He glared at the old flame demon ghost who was standing at the side without moving. He coldly snorted and waved his sleeves. He turned around and flew out of the city. Before he left, he spat out another sentence from his mouth. "What are you standing there for? Which direction did he go? Quickly lead the way for me. Otherwise, I will slap you to death right now." Hearing that, the old flame demon ghost was so angry that his face trembled. He glared at the Third Palace Master who had turned around and left. He responded and quickly flew in front to lead the way. After the few people in the sky left, the people in the city finally caught their breaths. They guessed at each other's intentions. There were also some people who were afraid of attracting trouble and hurriedly left. Lu Mansion, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing turned around. What entered their eyes was a young man wearing snow-white clothes. He held a Buddhist jade fan in his hand. As he opened and closed it, waves of pill fragrance were emitted, refreshing one's mind. Seeing this, Lu Huabai and Lu Xinqing did not dare to slight him in the slightest. They hurriedly bowed and greeted. "Greetings to Elder." The young man opened the jade fan in his hand and gently fanned it. He helped the two of them up. After which, he opened his mouth and said with a smile, No need to be so polite. I don't care about such etiquette. The two of you don't need to be so reserved. Feel free to do as you wish." Hearing this, the two of them hurriedly waved their hands and refused. However, under the other party's forceful request, they slowly relaxed. However, it was still possible to see that the two of them were not as relaxed as they appeared to be. "May I know if Elder has any mission for me since you have appeared today?" The atmosphere relaxed. Lu Huabai also gathered his courage and asked a question that he should not have taken the initiative to ask. Hearing this, the man smiled and shook his head. "No. It's only because of those few people who are neither human nor ghost. If not, I would rather return to my original body." Without waiting for the two of them to react, the man immediately opened his mouth and said, "Also in the future, don't call me Elder. It sounds like I'm very old. I have a name. It's called Bai Hua. In the future you can call me by my name. If you really can't, you can also call me Big Brother Bai. There's no need to call me Elder." Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other. Their faces were filled with helplessness. Immediately after, they looked at Bai Hua and nodded their heads. They did not say anything else. Chapter 58. Merge. The seals in Xiaoyan's hands changed as he cried out loudly in his heart. Immediately, the seals in his hands suddenly solidified and controlled the circulation of the heavenly flame in his body. The heavenly flame in his body followed some of the channels that it had never traveled before and finally returned to the route of the flame mantra Qi method. After that, for some unknown reason, it once again deviated from the route of the flame mantra Qi method. But even so, according to common sense, the discomfort in the body caused by the circulation of the Qi method and the reversal of vital energy did not occur. It was indeed incomparably strange. Of course, this only applied to those who did not know. Xiaoyan would naturally not feel strange about this. The heavenly flame followed the new Qi method route and slowly circulated, nourishing the channels. Xiaoyan also tried his best to familiarize himself with this Qi method route that was a little longer than the original one. He slowly circulated the Do Qi in his body and circulated it along this somewhat unfamiliar route. After a couple of hours of refining and merging, this portion of the flame mantra Qi method had already been completely refined by Xiaoyan. Although it was still a little raw, it was more or less completely merged with the flame mantra that Xiaoyan practiced. So much so that when Xiaoyan circulated it, his heart felt even smoother and smoother. The circulation and condensation of his Do Qi became even faster. This also caused Xiaoyan to feel quite happy in his heart. Qi methods were the foundation of cultivation. With a good Qi method, one's cultivation would naturally be even faster. The rise of one's cultivation would naturally be even faster and more solid. In this way, one would naturally have more confidence when facing enemies in the future. Not bad. To be able to completely merge and refine it in such a short period of time, it can be considered not bad. According to the current circulation speed and cultivation speed of the flame mantra, it has indeed reached the level of a human class Qi method. But unfortunately, this Qi method is not complete. Therefore, it looks like you still need some time to get used to it. Xiaoyan nodded and smiled but did not say anything. He would do whatever the two Xianxian emperor arranged. Although he, Xiaoyan, was not the kind of person who would be manipulated by others, the two Xianxian emperor would definitely not harm him. Moreover, he did indeed need strength now. With the two Xianxian emperor paving the road for him, it would indeed allow him to avoid many detours. The two of them chatted for a while before Xiaoyan entered his training mode and began to train. The next day on the top of the mountain, a ray of morning light shot from the horizon and shone on Xiaoyan's delicate and handsome face. Xiaoyan's closed eyes slowly opened and he exited his training mode. He narrowed his eyes and watched the dawn on the horizon. A few days later, 8 figures stood at the peak of the mountain. After probing for a while, one of them nodded and said respectfully to the person beside him, "That's right, Brother Li. Reporting to 3rd Hall Chief, this is the place where Xiaoyan had stayed. If I'm not wrong, he should have only left this place for a couple of days. With our speed, it is likely that we will catch up to him soon." The 3rd Palace Master nodded when he heard this. He looked at the direction Xiaoyan left in and pondered for a while before opening his mouth. This direction is towards the savage ancient city. Xiaoyan is leaving the southern region. The 3rd Palace Master paused for a while before letting out a cold laugh. "You think you will be fine after leaving the southern region?" Humph humph. The 3rd Palace Master lifted his right hand gently before waving it down heavily. At the same time he shouted, "Let's go. We must catch up with Xiaoyan within 3 days and not let him leave the southern region." Everyone responded. After which, they flew in the direction that Xiaoyan had left in. 2 days later, in Desolation City, Xiaoyan sat at a table by the window on the 2nd floor of a restaurant. He looked at the human flow below and took a sip of the tea in his hand. He smiled and got up to leave. Gu Yu's voice was suddenly heard, causing Xiaoyan to frown involuntarily. He sat down again. Wait, I think there is no need for you to leave. There should be a good show to watch in a while. Xiaoyan frowned and asked Gu Yu in his heart. Old Gu, what do you mean? Haha, I think the group you are waiting for has arrived. I can sense that there are 8 half-emperor level fellows heading over from the direction you came from. I think it won't be long before we reach this place. Xiaoyan frowned when he heard this. He lifted his eyes to look at the distant sky outside the window and asked faintly, Old Gu, what are their strengths like? Haha, it looks like they are determined to take you down. The moment these words were uttered, Xiaoyan's expression immediately became solemn. However, he still continued to quietly listen. Their overall strength is indeed quite a bit of pressure for you. The strongest among them is a 7-star half-emperor. Next are 2 4-star half-emperors and 5 1-star half-emperors. Xiaoyan did not say anything. He nodded silently to show that he understood. Then, his figure moved and disappeared from the restaurant. In the next moment, a white-clothed figure suddenly appeared in the sky. Everyone on the ground raised their heads to look at the sky with curiosity on their faces. Xiaoyan had his hands behind his back. His eyes were closed and his face was expressionless. He stood quietly in the sky, waiting for their arrival. After a while, a few faintly discernible black dots appeared in the distant sky before everyone's eyes. In a short moment, they arrived within 100 feet of Xiaoyan. TSK. Xiaoyan, I've heard of your name like thunder. Do you know how many people we've sent out to wait for you? We've waited bitterly for 10 years. Now you've finally appeared. Xiaoyan frowned and slowly opened his eyes. His eyes narrowed into black lines as he looked at the person who spoke. However, he still smiled and asked, Waiting for me? I've never met any of you before. Why would you wait for me to say such a thing? TSK. It looks like Sir Xiaoyan still doesn't understand many things. In that case, Sir Xiaoyan, please return with us. My master will personally explain it to you. I'm sure Sir Xiaoyan will understand the reason behind this. Xiaoyan's lips curled upwards when he heard that. He let out a mocking laugh and said with a mocking expression in his eyes, Ha. I'm sorry. I like to be with people. I really can't get along with people like you who are neither human nor ghost. The eyes of the third hall chief suddenly became sharp when he heard this. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Xiaoyan. It was a long while later before he slowly opened his mouth and said after a while he slowly said, It looks like you don't want to come with us. In that case, don't blame me for being rude. All of you attack. As long as you don't let him die, nothing else matters. Before the third hall master finished speaking, the 7 people behind him moved and charged toward Xiaoyan. A great battle was about to break out. Chapter 59. Xiaoyan looked at the 7 clusters of black fog surrounding him and frowned. A grave expression flashed across his face. Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes. He looked at the third hall master again and said, There doesn't seem to be any enmity between us. Moreover, this is also my first time here. Although I injured the old flame demon ghost that day, I didn't do anything to him. Hearing this, the old flame demon ghost's expression instantly became ferocious. His eyes looked at Xiaoyan as if they were about to spit fire. Xiaoyan, if you didn't sneak attack me, how could I have been injured by you? Xiaoyan, take a palm from me. Before his voice sounded, the old flame demon ghost was already anxious. Without waiting for the third hall master's order, he let out an explosive cry. His body moved and he threw a palm at Xiaoyan. Seeing this, Xiaoyan's face revealed a cold smile. His right arm was waved in front of him. Following which, his hand suddenly clenched into a fist. At the same time, the heavenly flame in his body surged out from the surface of his body and covered his entire body. At this moment, Xiaoyan appeared to have completely turned into a colorful and gorgeous fire person. Being enveloped by the heavenly flame, Xiaoyan slowly raised his head. A pair of bright eyes slightly brightened and a bright light flashed through them. Xiaoyan suddenly waved his right arm. His body shook and he charged toward the old flame demon ghost. Boom! An enormous wave of fire swept across the sky and blocked everyone's line of sight. The third hall master's expression also changed slightly. Under the black fog, a pair of sinister eyes emitted bits of pitch-black light. This Xiaoyan actually managed to raise his strength to the peak of a 2-star half-martial emperor in a short 2 months. This is truly astonishing. If it is only because of his bloodline awakening, then this Xiaoyan is truly extraordinary. From the looks of it, this Xiaoyan cannot be left alive. This time around I must take him down. A bloodthirsty glint flashed across the third hall master's eyes as this thought flashed across his mind. Just as the third hall master was about to make a move, his expression changed again. With a wave of his sleeve, a black energy shot out. Then another explosion was heard. The sound was accompanied by a miserable cry. The old flame demon ghost's figure appeared below the fire wave. Trash. The third hall master snorted coldly without turning his head. Immediately, his eyes became stern and the fire wave in front of the third hall master was directly separated. The wave of fire broke apart, revealing Xiaoyan's figure. Xiaoyan turned around and met the third palace master's gaze. At the point where their eyes met, a burst of fiery light flashed. Then Xiaoyan's body suddenly trembled and he took 3 steps back. The third hall chief coldly laughed. His body moved and a fist smashed toward Xiaoyan. Wherever the punch passed, the wind from the punch whistled. The space around the third hall master shattered with a loud bang, revealing a large patch of pitch-black void space. Wherever the third hall master passed, the space turned into a vacuum. It took a while before it slowly recovered. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in reality, it only took an instant. An instant was enough for Xiaoyan to do a lot of things. However, at this moment Xiaoyan felt powerless. Xiaoyan's face was grave. A 7-star half-martial emperor was indeed not someone he could easily defeat. The gap between the two of them was still too big. The space around him had already been locked down. It was impossible for him to dodge. Xiaoyan looked at the punch that was getting closer and closer. His expression became firm. With a thought, the dragon phoenix bloodline in his body was stimulated. Golden dragon scales instantly covered his entire body. His body trembled. He stepped on the void and instantly charged toward the third hall master. Yellow spring palm. Xiaoyan let out an explosive shout. Do Qi rapidly condensed in his heart and met the third hall master's fierce punch head-on. Boom. A loud sound was emitted. A wave of wild and violent energy swept through the world, completely destroying the wave of fire that had yet to disperse. In the sky, the third hall master's figure was like a crane standing in the sky. As for Xiaoyan, he was blasted several hundred feet away by the explosion. In the end, with an explosive sound, he was forcibly embedded into a huge mountain. Even so, the third hall master, who was standing upright in the air, still frowned slightly. A look of astonishment flashed across his eyes, and he could not help but mutter in a low voice, "That's right." He couldn't help but mutter, "I never imagined that Xiaoyan's physical body would be this frightening. Even with 30% of my strength as a 7-star half-martial emperor, I was still unable to cripple his arm. This is truly chilling." However, immediately after, the third hall master's eyes once again turned ice-cold. He looked at the huge mountain that Xiaoyan had crashed into. The third hall master's hands once again clenched into fists. Creaking sounds were emitted. The old and dark yellow skin on his knuckles was also suffused with bits of white. Immediately after, the third hall master's figure flashed. He disappeared along with the black fog that lingered around his body. At the same time, a gust of cold wind blew in the sky for no reason. The cold wind blew and formed several whirlwinds. They brought about whistling wind howls as they spiraled around the crowd. It was quite strange. In the next instant, the third hall master, who was originally rushing toward Xiaoyan, suddenly let out a furious roar. Xiaoyan, you actually dared to toy with me. You are simply courting death. Today I will definitely skin you alive and pull out your tendons. The third hall master's eyes were scarlet red as he turned around. He was so angry that his face twitched incessantly. The aura from his body suddenly soared, causing the black fog around him to ripple like waves of water. What he did not expect was that Xiaoyan was actually able to silently disappear before his eyes under the cover of his 7-star half-martial emperor's strength. This caused him, a 7-star half-martial emperor who had been in a high position for a long time, to inevitably feel humiliated in his heart. A cold wind blew past. Immediately after, a white-clothed figure appeared in the sky. He looked at the third hall master with a sneer on his face. The third hall master's face twitched. He completely mobilized the Do Qi within his body. His figure flashed and appeared before Xiaoyan. He threw a punch toward Xiaoyan. Seeing this, Xiaoyan's face was filled with shock. He leaned back slightly and spread his arms. With the sound of wind blowing under his feet, his figure flashed and disappeared from where he stood. Unfortunately, even though Xiaoyan's reaction was already very fast, the third hall master's punch still left a shallow imprint on Xiaoyan's chest. Xiao Yan's figure flashed and appeared 100 feet away. BFFF. Xiao Yan opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood with a flushed face. Immediately after, he looked at his chest. There was a palm-sized bloody imprint there. Xiao Yan's face twitched slightly. He thought in a somewhat serious manner. The strength of a 7-star half-martial emperor is indeed not to be underestimated. If it wasn't for my quick reaction, I'm afraid that the punch just now would have been enough to seriously injure me and make me lose the ability to fight. As Xiao Yan thought in his heart, he felt a chill run down his back. A 7-star half-martial emperor was indeed not someone he could contend against. He could not even receive a single punch from him. What could he use to fight to the death with him? Ah, what's wrong? You're not confident anymore? Don't you still have a human rank Do skill? Are you still afraid of him? Chapter 60. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He frowned a little in surprise. He glanced at the third hall master in the distance and asked Guyu in his heart, "Old Gu, I can understand why you say that I have a man-class Do technique. You have said in the Serene Bone Palace that the strength of the Angry Buddha reincarnation has already reached the level of a man-class Do technique. However, does this have anything to do with you being afraid of the third hall master? Or do you want me to rely on a man-class Do technique to fight with a 7-star Ban Emperor?" Guyu choked when this question appeared in Xiao Yan's heart. He coughed a couple of times before slowly coming to a stop. Xiao Yan seemed to have realized that he had misunderstood, but he did not continue to ask. This was because he knew that Guyu would tell him the answer. As expected, Guyu finally opened his mouth a moment later. "If it weren't for the fact that this old man is here to hear you say these words, I'm afraid that even a random person would be angered to the point of smoke coming out of their 7 orifices after hearing you say such unbearable words." Xiao Yan blinked his eyes. It seemed that he had sensed that this man-class Do technique was not ordinary. However, he continued to look at the third hall master with a calm expression. Xiao Yan relaxed when he saw that the third hall master was looking at him with a doubtful expression. Although a man-class Do technique is the lowest class among the Tian-class Do techniques, the development of a man-class Do technique is the most immeasurable among the Tian-class Do techniques. As for the Tian-class Do techniques, this was only a general term. A man-class 4 Spirit Saint was called a Tian-class Do technique. The Tian-class 4 Spirit Saint was called a Tian-class Do technique. The Tian-class 4 Spirit Saint was called a D-class Do technique. This was also a classification of the Do techniques mastered by each individual. It was very ordinary. As for the development of a man-class Do technique, it was because a man-class Do technique was the easiest to practice and also the easiest to comprehend among the Tian-class Do techniques. When a man-class Do technique was practiced to a high level, there would be an illusionary image of the person who created it. This would allow the practitioner to control it more easily. It was also because of this illusory figure that a practitioner was able to have the opportunity to comprehend the profoundness within it and raise the foundation of the Do technique. There was even the opportunity to create a Ling-class Do technique. The strength of a man-class Do technique is naturally incomparably powerful. Let's use you as an example. If you were to use a man-class Do technique to deal with this third hall master, you would be able to seriously injure him in one move. You should also understand that the man-class Do technique is not so simple. Moreover, that man-class Do technique of yours is something that you created yourself. From this point of view, its strength should be a little stronger. So, you can be at ease and go. The words were extremely long. However, from the point of view of Xiao Yan and the third hall chief, only a couple of breaths had passed. When Xiao Yan heard this, his heart was greatly stirred. He took a deep breath and was about to step forward and fight a few more rounds with the third hall master. However, his expression changed in the next instant. He held his chest with his hand and violently coughed a couple of times. Xiao Yan spat out a mouthful of blood that remained in his mouth. He sensed the faint scent of blood that was transmitted from his nose. His heart involuntarily felt somewhat bitter. The speed of this third hall master was clearly above his. The first condition for Xiao Yan to use the Angry Buddha reincarnation was that he needed sufficient time. However, in the current situation, it could be said that Xiao Yan did not have sufficient time to use the Angry Buddha reincarnation. Although Xiao Yan had the help of the Sky Extinction Step, he had yet to master the Sky Extinction Step. Even if he used all his strength, his speed would at the very most be on par with the third hall master. In this way, in addition to the old flame demon ghost and the others watching from the side, it was likely that he would not have the opportunity to use the Angry Buddha reincarnation. When Xiao Yan thought of this in his heart, his brows were tightly knit together. Both of his eyes swept all around him, searching for a way to escape. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Yan made up his mind. Since there was no other way to survive, he could only force his way out. Xiaoyan's eyes suddenly turned cold. The third hall master raised his brows slightly and let out a cold laugh. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at Xiaoyan with eyes filled with disdain. Xiaoyan's body moved. A whirlwind was formed under his feet as he silently disappeared into the void. The third hall master let out a cold laugh. Both of his fists were tightly clenched. His body moved and appeared at a certain spot in the void. He waved his huge fist, which carried the power of a burning wind, and violently struck the space in front of him. Bang! A muffled sound was emitted. The third hall master frowned slightly under his mask. Immediately, it turned into a cold snort. His body moved and once again rushed out in a flash. At this moment, Xiaoyan's expression was incomparably solemn. He was fully focused on using the sky extinction step to dodge in all directions. He did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. Every time the third hall master flashed, a muffled sound would be emitted in the air. Sometimes, it would also be accompanied by a muffled snort. However, there was no trace of that person. This also caused the people in the city below to click their tongues in amazement. A moment later, in the sky, a tattered figure with blood at the corner of his mouth and bruises on his body finally came to a stop. Xiaoyan's mouth was panting heavily. The skin at the corner of his eyes was trembling. Xiaoyan glanced at his tattered clothes before parting his mouth to look at the third hall chief. A cold laugh was emitted from his mouth. In the short exchange just now, the third hall master had thrown out a total of nearly 100 punches. However, there were only a dozen bruises on Xiaoyan's body. Although his clothes were a little tattered, the injuries on Xiaoyan's body were much fewer. On the other hand, Xiaoyan also realized that under such a close pursuit, his control of the sky extinction step was getting better and better. This was indeed good news for Xiaoyan. When the third hall master saw Xiaoyan's mocking smile just now, the anger in his heart soared. His fists were once again tightly clenched as his mouth let out an explosive roar. Roar! The few of you attack together. Today I will definitely cripple you. When the 7 people heard this, with the flame demon old ghost in the lead, their bodies moved. As the seals in their hands changed, a loud explosive roar was emitted from their mouths as they violently attacked Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan frowned. However, he did not panic. His footwork changed as he twisted at a strange angle. His body suddenly moved and once again disappeared in the sky. At this moment, the attacks of the 7 people had already arrived in front of him. Unfortunately, Xiaoyan's body had already disappeared without a trace. Boom! After throwing out a punch, the third hall master's body appeared 1,000 feet away from the 7 people. However, what welcomed him was a thick and heavy black ruler. At this moment, this huge ruler had already been forcefully blasted into a 3-inch deep groove by the third hall master's wild and violent punch. Around the groove there were also some densely packed cracks.